Board of County Commissioners meeting for Custer County is called to order. Let the record show that it is 9 a.m. on Thursday. Welcome, everybody. It's good to see you here. Ms. Bubas, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I would be honored.
Thank you.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Welcome, everybody, to the second commissioner meeting under said governorship with Bill, myself, and Mr. Prince. We're glad to have you guys here. Madam Secretary, would you do the roll call, please?
Commissioner Flower.
Present.
Commissioner Kanda.
Here.
Commissioner Prince.
Yeah.
Attorney Clint Smith.
Present.
And Clerk to the Board, Kelly Camper, present.
Thank you, ma'am. Any amendments to the agenda, gentlemen?
I did not have any.
Okay, I have not necessarily an amendment, but possibly a change in the order. I'd like to run that by you and see what you think. Under old business, the personnel policy, I would request that we move that down to after the staff meeting. So currently, I'm proposing that be moved down to the final item of business under new business.
No problem.
You okay with that, Mr. Prince? So we will move personnel policy
And I have
out of old business.
I
Yes, ma'am.
have we need to discuss the courthouse Christmas party, but you might want to just do that during the staff meeting too.
Let's do that. Yeah.
Okay.
If you'll remind us, bring
Yep.
that up. Thank you. Any other amendments to the agenda? Thank you. We'll move on to the approval of the minutes. I'm assuming we're talking about the November 22nd meeting, Kelly? Is that
Yes.
true? You gentlemen had an opportunity to review those minutes?
Yeah, I didn't have anything.
I submitted some changes. Do you know if those were implemented? Did you get those or not?
I did not.
Okay. I was hoping that... Is Brenda back there? I can't see.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Did you forward those changes
Yes,
to Kelly?
yes.
Okay. I will move that we postpone approving the minutes until you have an opportunity to
Yeah, I can do that.
make those changes. There were some spelling errors and one thing and another, and I'd like those cleaned up before we adopt those minutes.
Okay. Now Brenda forwarded, or she gave me some spelling stuff. Do
Right.
you want to look at that and see if that's the same thing you had, or you want to just wait?
I think a lot of it is the same, but I think he also had something else.
There was a little
Okay.
wording
But I
on one
did-
of the motions. that
Okay.
needed to be
Forwarded
corrected.
We
that
can
to
wait.
you
Mhm.
via
Yeah.
email.
Okay.
Is there a second to the motion to postpone?
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded to postpone approval of the minutes. Any discussion about that? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, so we'll postpone till the next meeting. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. We would like to go through audience introduction. If you are not from, well, let's just do this. If you will, for the record, introduce yourself and tell us your address, then we will have a record of where you are from. Yes, ma'am.
Tracy Ballard, reporter, Wet Mountain Tribune. I live in District 3.
Thank you.
Eva Colgate. I have property in Custer County, but I live in Canyon now.
Thank you.
Jackie Bubis for the Sentinel. I live on Verdamont.
Dallas Anderson, Airport Advisory Board. I'm in Boneyard Park.
Johnny Ainsworth, I represent Corner Verde Homeowners Association Board, and I live in Corner Verde on Airport Road.
Thank you.
Basil Lane, Assistant Chief. I live in the Valley Floor.
Planning and zoning, Jackie Hobby. I'm not gonna tell you where I
See if you remember who you are, Roger.
I'm gonna write this down.
I know.
Yeah.
Stalker.
Go ahead, Roger.
Okay, Roger Camper, Wet Mountain Fire. I live on Ulay Road, 175.
Terry Munson, I'm the district clerk for Wet Mountain Fire. We live in Beckwood.
Gary Lavenson, I'm with Wet Mountain Fire. I live in the small town of Ulay.
Pretty small.
Pretty small.
Dave Townsend, Wet Mountain Fire, see Jake Road, Bull Domingo.
Carolyn Parker, Bull Domingo.
Bill Parker, Bull Domingo. Wilson Jarvis, Ute Mesa.
Steve Cox, Door Mountain Vistas.
Peggy Collins, Door Mountain Vistas.
Jerry Carpenter, I live in Silver Cliff Heights.
Charles Vogel, rural Custer County.
All right, thank you very much. Again, welcome. Glad to have you here. I know it seems a little weird to be giving our addresses and this and that, but if there are people from out of town in the attendance to the meeting, I think it gives them a sense of where everybody's from. So thank you for doing that. We appreciate it. Commissioner items.
The only thing I'd like to say is I thought we had a pretty good 2-3 days over at the CCI conference. Learned a lot. Got some new insights. Met with all the commissioners across the state. Put names and personalities together. It was great. And an opportunity to further study some of the things that commissioners do at different levels across the state. Going to continue to do that before Christmas, I hope. We'll get with the director again and continue to learn.
Good point. Yeah, CCI stands for Colorado Counties Incorporated, an organization who not only has a legislative branch, but also a group that helps coordinate efforts throughout the state for all the counties that are involved in. We had a good meeting, as Bill said. It was nice to meet some people, and of course for us being new commissioners, gives us a chance to introduce ourselves to some representatives and senators that were there, as well as the whole executive board for CCI. So.
Yeah, we learned we're not the Lone Ranger. A lot of the same issues we have here, they have there.
Yeah.
And they've solved some problems, and we can learn from that. And
yeah.
We can help them, too.
I particularly appreciated Senator Crowder's comments yesterday in a meeting that was primarily dealing with courthouse and jail facilities across the state, and didn't take us long, of course, and you know this as well as we do, that there really, or Colorado's broken down into two parts, rural and front range, basically. And I appreciated that Senator Crowder did not use the word rural, he used the word frontier. And I thought, yep, that's exactly right. And I know in the whole EMS world, frontier is a commonly used term, but it kind of warmed my heart to hear him say Frontier Colorado. And he specifically said there is a huge difference between Frontier Colorado and the Front Range, the urban areas. We're really fighting a different set of circumstances. The issues may be the same, but the circumstances are completely different. You know, Adams County, they have a problem, not a big deal. They've got some room in their budget to deal with things. Well, when you get into a county of 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 residents, that's not necessarily true. So it was nice to hear some of those commissioners from smaller counties.
It was neat to see the rural aspect of a lot of them. You know, they're good old boys feeding cows and taking out the trash and hauling rocks just like we do up here. What that kind of highlighted is it would sure be neat if there was a way to balance the budget across the counties and have right now we have a population center, Denver and Gunnison or Grand Junction and Pueblo, Colorado Springs. It kind of ruled the state. It would be nice to have a way to balance that like you do with the Electoral College for presidential elections. It would be kind of, and that is even brought up several times that it's the disproportionate. If you don't understand, if you don't walk in the shoes we walk in, how can you make legislative action at the state level that it makes sense from a rural point of view? So, good news is they understand that. We just got to keep pushing on it.
And I got to tell you that our colleague, Mr. Prince, helped us along a little bit and pointed us in the right direction, and it was good to see you, of course, interacting with people that you've met, and
Some people with grant money out there.
see that. So, yeah. So we set in a lot of workshops and business meetings, and as conferences go, most of the meaningful communication with other people was done at coffee break and over meals and standing out in the hallway. And so, anyway, just wanted to kind of give you an overview of that. Mr. Prince, any comments about CCI?
Yeah, I'll make it quick. One of the excellent meetings that the three of us had was with Christy Doon with DOLA. She's in tune with what we're working on and thoughts we had. DOLA has some money, so we can start talking to them about it. We talked about broadband and dark skies, and really hit her pretty hard about what we're going to do about our physical space and our infrastructure, and whether we continue, the three of us, on the path of a new justice center or something else. She was definitely in tune to it. I also spoke to Senator Crowder about losing our underfunded courthouse grant. He directed me to the head of the committee, and I spoke to him at great length. And they withdrew. It was a $140,000 grant for us to study what to do about a courtroom space, this facility that's been added on too many times. Electrical systems are, each time they add on, it's a new electrical system coming in. It's not really infiltrated, so we're hodgepodge together in this building. The 11th District Court has asked us multiple times to look into getting another courtroom or a bigger courtroom or something to help us handle that. And that's a little separate than a county issue, but the county's responsible for that. The underfunded courthouse withdrew our grant for a couple of reasons. The first was that we were changing our direction from what we originally asked for, and it was $140,000. We originally asked for help us study whether to add on to this building. After that, we revised that and said we would like to expand it to include the potential of a new building, a Justice Center. Justice Center would include the sheriff, the courts, the jail, and those kind of facilities. They said that the change in direction was one of the reasons, and also the political change that we had. They were concerned that the two new commissioners and I were still on board with the same agenda. We can't apply for that again for another year, so we're kind of on hold with that project until they open up for review on that again. So that was kind of disappointing, but overall the conference was excellent. We got to meet a lot of important people and get our views across.
Good, thank you.
We did a lot of political.
Yeah, I spoke with the two commissioners who were on that underfunded courthouse grant committee as well, Marty Galvin and Darius Allen. Darius is, I think, a good friend of Custer County, is a commissioner over in Alamosa, and encouraged us strongly to apply for that grant again. There was a little money left over after that grant process, but it got gobbled up by counties that actually had works in the process. And so unofficially he said, we felt like we kind of needed to get that money to people that had a shovel in the ground and were ready to start building something versus a study. But he said, absolutely, you guys, we're in your corner, reapply, and we understand your needs over there. And so I was at least encouraged by that. So I don't know what really falls under commissioner items and what doesn't. It's kind of a vague term for me. In the past, the commissioner meetings that I've attended, I would have probably called that commissioner reports, but if I'm assuming it's items so that if we have anything else we need to bring before the group, we can do that. I have a couple of things I'd like to discuss that specifically involve our secretary, and I spoke with her a little bit this morning about that. I've asked her if she would help manually record our motions as they're made. I know we had a little confusion and misunderstanding at our last meeting. We need to get the wording of these motions exactly right. We may consort to running those by our county attorney as we go through the meeting as well, because I think there will be times when we have to have very clear, concise understanding of what the motion is that we're debating on and what we're going to vote on. So I've asked her if she will assist with that, because I don't feel like I can serve as a chair and try to write down the motions that are being made. And along that same vein, I would ask that when we make motions that they are very clear and concise and to the heart of the matter, and then after that we can add any discussion or supporting facts. But it's hard to do that while we're making a motion and get those recorded and into the minutes properly. So that would be a request from the chair. The other thing that I've spoken with Kelly about is I think we'll need to go to a roll call vote on not every issue, but certainly on matters that we're making decisions on, particularly motions. General consensus, not a big issue with me, but on formal motions, I believe we need to have a roll call. God. Didn't mean to use that word, my apologies. A roll call vote, so that we have a record of how we vote on matters that come before the board. And along with that, then, on a three-person board, I find it interesting that if we select a system of calling on the board to vote in a consistent manner, let's assume that it's from Bill, myself, and ends with Jay, and we do that all the time. There will be times when maybe unfairly the last person to vote will have the deciding vote, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm just not sure it's fair to put that on the same person, motion after motion after motion. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? Comments, please.
It does, Mr. Chairman. The only thing I prefer when we say all in favor say aye, all opposed say nay. That negates that concern you have, yay, yay, and I'm going, well,
right.
Might as well say yay because my name means nothing. Yes. So I like it when, my suggestion would be we continue to say yay or nay at the same time. And then if you want to take a poll of the votes, I think that would be appropriate.
Okay. Point well taken. Mr. Kent?
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of tough. Otherwise, you're going to have to go back and forth.
Well, that's what I thought. If we got on a rotating roll call, then we could do that.
Last guy could either be the good guy or the bad.
That's right. That's right. The other problem I have with the voice vote, and they're certainly legal. There's nothing wrong with those, but it is hard, especially on a recorded meeting, for our constituents to be able to say, I know exactly how my commissioner voted on that item. And it would be easy, particularly for me as the chair, to kind of, motion carries or fails. I think that maybe on some motions we can request a roll call vote.
Could do that, or you could reiterate it's a unanimous vote. Everybody voted. That would do it.
Right, which it goes into the minutes.
Bang, bang,
If it's unanimous, it goes in that way.
And even if it's not, not unanimous,
you could
I'll
still
put in there, so and so and so and so voted for, so and so voted against.
Right. If you can determine that on a voice vote with
if it's
three
vague,
people.
then you can ask for clarification.
Yeah. And that's my point. If we all voice vote at the same time, and I happen to vote no, are you clearly going to know that I voted against that on a voice vote? That's my concern. So,
Well, when you say all those for, and you all say aye, and all
that's
those
true.
against,
Yeah, that's true.
that's pretty.
Yeah, I guess we all three vote against it, or we all three vote for it, then it's not an issue. So, yeah, point well taken. Thank you. Okay, I just wanted to bring that up. If at any time, and I've talked with Kelly about this. We're in the middle of a motion and you need to stop the proceedings. I just feel we have to get these motions exactly to reflect what the maker of the motion's intent was, so that I don't misinterpret. In a small board here, of course, we should have that ability, but don't feel free to say, if you guys will hold on a minute. If it's a lengthy motion, then I'll probably ask you to read that back to the group. And if it's an extremely long motion, then that should probably be brought to the board in the form of a resolution with as short a preamble as we can live with. So,
Or at least write it down.
yeah, and absolutely nothing wrong with bringing a motion written down to the board. No problem with that at all.
One other thing I thought of, if you don't mind for a second.
No, go ahead.
I would appreciate it if Clint, there he is, if there's something in the past that has been decided and you know that you've been asked for clarification or whatever, don't be shy to help us understand where we are or where we were. You know, and you're not interrupting, and from my point of view, the more we know what you know and the advice you can give, the better it is.
Yep.
I know last meeting there was a couple things that I think you had a couple insights on, not insights, but that we had written down in the past that might have helped our discussion a little bit as we go. And in that light, we don't want to be rambling on forever and ever, because we sure took a lot of time last time, and I know some of us. I've got an appointment in the afternoon. We don't want to. Let's expedite it if we can.
Sure. Okay, good. That being said, sir, Counselor, do you have anything to bring before the board?
A couple of things. I attended the Planning Commission workshop this last Tuesday. The Planning Commission has started work on some proposed amendments to the zoning resolution, and they had 3 topics on the agenda, but one of them concerning light pollution or the dark skies issues. Everybody knows that one has been postponed until another workshop on Monday, December 11 at 1:30 p.m., which will be in the courtroom again. That's where this workshop was on Tuesday. But the issues they did discuss this Tuesday were, I think they got a lot of work done, mostly trying to get the language correct, because they'll have public meetings yet on the issues that they discussed. And the same with the issue that'll be coming up on the next meeting on December 11. So I thought that was helpful, and I, as the county attorney, I was able to help them with some wording issues on the issues that they did discuss. The other thing I want to talk about briefly is the Custer County Airport. There were 2 things. Several weeks ago, we had received a bill. A new fuel dispenser was put in there and the board had approved the expense of $8,850. I believe when we got a bill, there were some additional charges that were added on to that for troubleshooting, is how they phrased it. And there was a dispute about that by the representatives from the airport. They didn't feel that the troubleshooting needed to be was necessary, because they had identified what the problem was early on. In any event, I wrote a letter to the supplier, Eaton, I think is the name of the company out of Colorado Springs, that brought the fuel dispenser and installed it, saying that we would go ahead and pay the undisputed amount, the $8,850, but that at this point the board was declining. And I sent a letter out a few weeks ago. I haven't had any response to that yet, so I don't know if they've decided not to pursue that or if we will hear something on it. But as I said, Donna Hobby did go ahead and pay the $8,850.
How much was the difference?
It was at least a couple of $1,000s more for their troubleshooting. Yes. And it was an issue, and Dallas is here, it had to do with the valve, and they had pointed out at the very beginning that they thought this valve was a problem, and apparently it was ignored at the time. So we felt all that troubleshooting was unnecessary. I'm sorry, go ahead, Dallas.
Oh, I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, that's fine.
The amount that they billed was about $3,200 over the original bid, so we knew, myself and Bob Jolly both were there at the first day they came, and Bob talked to the head mechanic and told him that had been told by another pump company that valve might very well be bad and they ought to look at it. And they said, those things never go bad. Then it just multiplied from there.
So they really never did do the troubleshooting as far as even looking at the valve. They just
The last visit they came, which was about the 5th visit, they did, and determined that we were correct in what we were told, that it might be bad. Well, it was bad. They rectified that, and all of a sudden the system's working.
Good, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
And the other issue relating to the airport, at the last board meeting, I reported that we'd gotten notification, or the Airport Advisory Board had gotten notification that MasterCard was imposing a $945 annual fee for their services, and that was just, our airport couldn't handle that on the budget that it has. So I said I would contact Worldwide Fuel Services. It's very complicated. Phillips 66 is the actual provider, but Worldwide Fuel Services is sort of the middleman on this. And I was astonished at the quick response I got. I sent an email. I was moved up the ladder very quickly. Within a couple of days, I got a telephone call from a gentleman named Dan Gallegos, who's the representative for Worldwide Fuel Services who covers this area. And I explained the situation. He was familiar with it because he's had the same complaint from a lot of rural airports that operate on small budgets. And I mean, this almost sounds too good to be true, and I guess I'll believe it when I see it, but he said that his organization, Worldwide Fuel Services, would go ahead and pay that fee for us, that $945. The only thing he was asking for in exchange was that we contract with them for 4 years to continue getting our fuel through them. The contract that's in existence right now already goes to 2019. So he's asking essentially for, and the contract is very old. It was a 2010 contract that renews every 3 years, and it's just sort of been going on that way. And he said he would send the contract, so I'll certainly, when I get it, I'll look at it.
So it's a 2-year extension.
Basically a 2-year extension, and I mean, Dallas had told me that they certainly weren't contemplating trying to switch their providers or anything, so it sounded like a great deal for us.
Saves us $1,000 a year.
Yeah, and that would be great. So as soon as I hear more on that, I'll report back. That was very good news.
Thank you for your work there. Appreciate it. The time for the planning PC workshop on the 11th?
1:30 p.m.
Thank you, sir. Anything else?
No, that's all I have.
Can't see back there. I'm assuming Mrs. Gady is here. You have anything as an administrative assistant to bring forward?
Got a few things.
Okay. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. How
Good
are
morning.
you?
Good morning. Good morning. Okay. By next week, you guys should have your laptops for the meetings next week.
Okay.
If you choose to use your laptop as your board packet. If not, I can make copies of everything that's needed. I just need to know what you want.
I want to get rid of this.
So you'll just have to let me know.
Pretty old-fashioned, Brenda.
You want paper? Because I can do that. So yeah, just let me know what you want to do. The meeting dates for January, for the first meetings, are January 2nd and 3rd, which is like, we have the 1st off and then we go right into a meeting the 2nd and 3rd. Do you want to keep those dates? Because those are tentative. We really haven't set any dates for 2018. Or do we want to move them out another week?
We probably ought to move it because there's a lot of people that take a holiday through that.
Yeah.
And we won't have anybody here to ask questions.
Yeah, and I need to be on a conference call on the 3rd. Prince, do you have any?
I'm fine moving it to the 9th and 10th, if that's what you're suggesting.
Yeah, that would be my suggestion, just because of,
That's a good one.
and then at those meetings, we'll set all of the stuff for 2018, all the meeting dates, all the holidays, all that good stuff, so.
Go ahead, sir.
Well, I was thinking I might sneeze, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was like,
But no, I was.
Everybody turn.
I had a question also.
Yeah.
It's going around.
At the beginning of this year, there was a tentative schedule that was provided to us.
Mhm.
Are you going to do that
Yes.
again? Okay, great. And then we can adjust it if we see fit.
yes.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. I have interviews scheduled for the IT position for the 7th of December. Right now, I have 3 interviews with the possibility of a 4th sometime. Hopefully, I'll get that information today or tomorrow. Would you like your interview packets now so you can start looking at them, and then if we have a 4th interview, we'll
Get it when
get
you
it
can.
to you.
You said the 7th?
The 7th. The first one
Pearl
starts
Harbor
at 9
Day.
a.m. So,
Yeah, that would be great if we can get those ahead of time.
okay. So come see me after we're done here, and I'll get those to you.
Is that,
So-
is that paperwork that Chuck sent to me,
the job descriptions?
Yeah,
I have that in there, yes, and it's paper, so.
Works for me.
do we have a plan on how long we interview for?
I have an hour scheduled, but like one starts at 9 and one starts at 10, and then I have one scheduled for 1 o'clock.
Perfect.
So I don't know if we'll add another one at 11 or one at 2 or whatever, but.
And I mentioned to Donna, and I think I mentioned to you also, I think it would behoove those areas of the courthouse that rely on IT to have representatives here. So they can, I mean, it's up to the chairman, of course, but I would like them to have some input in if they have questions that we didn't think of, those kind of things. And are we going to do questions ahead of time like we did for the road and bridge supervisor's job, or are we just going to wing it? How would you, do we have a plan on how we'd like to do that?
Which was going to be a follow-up question. I know you have kind of taken the lead on that IT interview process. Would certainly defer to you if you have some suggestions. Personally, I feel like we need to have at least some set questions so that we interview all the candidates fairly.
I absolutely agree with that.
Can I interject for a
Certainly.
second? Because I had talked to Donna Hobby and Chuck Ippolito the other day about these interviews, and it was my understanding that there was a committee made up of a number of people, like the sheriff and emergency services. So maybe we need to check, because I thought they were all going to be present for this interview process.
She has already spoken to, I don't know if anyone spoke to
She
her.
being
Donna. Donna spoke to, like, Kelly and JD and Virginia and the sheriff. So they're all in, except JD is not here that day, but I said I would give him a packet and he could look through it and put in his 2 cents ahead of time if he'd like. So...
Let me interject a couple things here from experience in other areas, both in the Air Force and in the civilian aerospace world. I don't think we need a whole hour.
Yeah, and... Yeah.
That's the first one.
Okay.
I think we can do it, and you schedule a half an hour. You got a background on them already. We know what their quote qualifications are. Then we need to interview them and dig deeper into some questions we may have. Also, you don't want to get too many people in there. Usually it's a rep, HR, the office that cares, like us, and maybe 1 or 2 others. If there's already been a committee, like Clint pointed out, maybe you get the people that understand the need and can ask a few probing questions. They should have a packet too. So I think we can get it done. I don't want to drag this into 3 hours.
The problem is, I've already scheduled this with the interviewees. So, and those are the times when they.
Well, it's easy to fix.
One guy is coming from Denver, so that's the 1 o'clock one.
Well, then we could maybe work it around him. If that is that the only time he could get here?
I think because he was driving down that day.
Takes
so.
3 hours. So, yeah.
So.
Go ahead, Jay.
Bill, what we've done in the past, and of course we can change anything that we've done in the past, but we scheduled an hour. The interviews actually lasted about 30 minutes, which I thought was plenty of time. And then we had an opportunity to talk about the strengths and weaknesses that we heard. So that's what we did in the past. So that's why it was an hour per interview, but really the interviewing time was considerably less.
And what we did in the past also is you can get together afterwards and you have the advantage of comparing all of them. So you don't want to be biased up front, and so you listen to everything objectively, and then you come together on all three candidates and discuss what the goods and bads are with each.
We also had for lack of a better term, a scoring sheet.
That's
that
good.
The three of us would score on an equal basis, personality, knowledge, background.
That's going to be in this too, right?
Well,
are you going to do that?
Yeah, that's what we did previously, and that seemed to work real well. And then when we were, with divisions that were directly affected, we were able to sit down and say, well, I like this particular person here, or I thought they were weak in this area.
Sure.
But we all had the same criteria.
That's right.
That we scored on, and in fact, the last time we did it, it was just an overwhelming, unanimous decision. I mean, we all scored. The one person we ended up hiring just far above anybody else. So. I can resurrect that from the last time, or we may still have that.
I might, yeah.
Okay, and it would be a suggestion that maybe we could look at that and decide before December 7th. We have 2 meetings before then, we could look at that.
Sure. Is there anything going on in the morning on the 7th that we have to be in here for?
Well, those two.
The 2 interviews.
That's what I mean. We could do it all in the afternoon, couldn't we?
If I can, if I can
not?
call those people and reschedule them.
Yeah, I thought initially the same thing, that if our last interview in the morning starts at 10, we're done by 10:30, quarter to 11, then the second one is or the third one is at 1. I wonder if we couldn't compress that a little bit, but, if we can't,
You got 2 choices. You're giving it, right?
Yeah, I think the other 2 are local. So.
Yeah, we could maybe do an afternoon segment. If we have to stay with the morning and afternoon, so be it.
Do you want to do just every half hour then?
Well,
you guys
I concur with what Mr. Prince has said about it's nice to have a little time between interviews to discuss those interviews, take a break, go to the restroom, get a drink of water, whatever.
Okay.
We hammer those back to back, then it gets a little...
Okay, so if I add in a 4th person, are we running through 4, like 1, 2, 3, and 4?
Yeah, I'd say if we could stick those at 11 o'clock, then we could finish up, go to lunch, come back, do the one in the afternoon. That would make sense to me.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I apologize. I just want to make sure that the people who are so directly affected by IT are able to meet whatever decision, whatever schedule we have. I really don't. I want them to be able to say, when the candidate's not here, that person's terrific, or I don't think we could work with that person, or whatever they want to say. But I really would like input from not just us making the decision, but the people who really use it. I'm not an IT person. I need help from the people who know.
No, I agree with you 100%. What I do not want to do is have this kind of a hodgepodge thing. We have no idea who's going to be on that committee. We don't know who's going to speak. We need to know exactly who's going to be on that interview committee and who's going to ask questions and that kind of thing. So I certainly agree that we need everybody, all the players that need or want to be involved, to get them on that committee. But I'd like to see that committee formalized this week and figure out exactly if we need to bring Donna in, let's do that.
Donna won't be here.
She's not going to be here at all, okay. Which is okay, but if you would communicate with her and say, these guys want to know exactly who's going to be on that committee, let's get that handled.
That's a good point. In that light, what's been done my experience is questions are all written out. There's formal ones,
Mhm.
there's personnel kinds of questions, whatever. And we take a turn with that question. We rotate the questions,
And
and
I
the questions
think
are fixed.
I think I have those questions. They're not, I mean, that was for the whatever position that we interviewed for, but that'll give you an idea and then you can modify them.
Certainly.
So I'll
And-
send
and
those
a good
out.
point that we'll meet prior to that. It's not like we have to do this between.
Finalize our procedure.
But yeah, I would like definitely all the players to be identified, and then so we know exactly who's on that committee and
Okay.
press forward. Thank you.
Okay. Last thing, the economic development broadband infrastructure expansion tower project grant that was talked about last Wednesday. DOLA is asking for a county representative. And Donna felt like it should be a commissioner. So I guess the question is, which commissioner is...
Yeah, I saw that email.
I'll volunteer unless...
Jay, you were about to say something?
Well, I was just going to say that having been involved in this from day one, if you'd like me to do it, I'd be happy to, but I'll defer if you want.
Just your whatever the board's pleasure.
Yeah, they just, again, need that point of contact so
Yeah.
they know who to send that material to.
And I usually ask them to include me on everything because I end up doing the paperwork. So
Go ahead.
Jay?
Are you okay?
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your help back there.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do without you.
Thank you.
As we move into old business, I'd like to make a couple of comments as the chair. Last BOCC meeting, we voted to include public comment after each item of business. This is an unusual agenda today. If you happen to have copies of that, you'll see there's 5 or 6 items of business listed under old business. That's highly unusual if you follow the laws set up, parliamentary laws as far as Robert's rules. The definition of an item of old business was that it was an item of business that was directly interrupted by almost an emergency cessation of the last meeting. Because we talk about something at the last meeting doesn't necessarily mean it goes into old business. That's kind of a wives' tale. Certainly we're going to allow this today. I don't have a problem with that, but eventually we should see very little stuff under old business. If we were discussing something and it got tabled, then it will come back as old business as well. But so two things, of course, not to ramble on, but I would like to inform the public that you will have an opportunity for public comment after or during the discussion of each of these items of business. That's important to us as a board for the obvious reasons of transparency and the like. Obviously, the same thing will apply as new business.
We need input.
And we need that input, absolutely. So as we get to that, public comment, most of the time I don't anticipate that being a problem, but the chair will impose time limits, most likely limited to 2 minutes per speaker.
Especially for you, Roger.
On any given issue. So we will handle those as those arise, but in the event that we have a significant number of people that would like to comment, just be prepared that there probably will be a time limit imposed. Yes, ma'am.
It's my understanding that the only public comment was going to be on items that you're going to vote on. Is that correct?
That's actually how the motion read. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for bringing that up. I certainly wouldn't be opposed if somebody had information to present to the board, whether we were going to vote or not. I would probably allow that as the chair. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I concur with what you're saying. Previously, comments from the floor were not taken as, I'm trying to say this nicely, they weren't encouraged. We represent these people.
Sure,
I want them
absolutely.
to tell me what they want. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate your openness to
Yeah,
allow
thank you.
comments.
And the other thing, and of course, it's better to talk about this stuff before we get in the heat of a battle. Typically, and this certainly, don't misunderstand what I'm saying, but there's a reason for what I'm about to say. Most comments are directed towards the chair, whoever that is. And obviously that prevents a lot of, in the heat of the battle, personal attacking Bill for something he said. So don't be surprised if I interrupt somebody and say, will you kindly direct your remarks to the chair? You may be speaking to the entire board, no problem. But certainly those comments need to be directed to the chair, and then the chair deals with those comments as appropriate. Does that make sense for you as the audience? And
Plus, you got a thick hide.
that's right. When things are going good, no big deal. But when somebody's foot gets jammed in the fire, we need to have protocols kind of set up, and they are. I mean, if you've studied parliamentary law, that it's there. Whether we choose to use it or whether we choose to make everybody aware of that is a whole nother matter. So, with that, we would like to move on with old business. Planning and zoning and / the health department. I'm assuming that we'll probably be going into the health department. Mrs. Hobby,
Yes.
floor is yours, ma'am. Yes.
There needs to be a motion to
Yes.
recess. Okay.
Right, yeah. Welcome.
Ouch.
Oh, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, right.
Morning.
And before you start, may I follow up on Counselor's comment? Do we have to cite CRS statutes to do that?
No, just a motion to recess
Okay.
as the Board of County Commissioners and
Recess and reconvene.
and open as the Board of Health.
Thank you. Yeah, it wouldn't be reconvened. All right, yes, ma'am.
No, you guys recess the
Oh,
commission.
you want to do the health thing now?
That's all I'm here for.
That's what she's doing.
All right, sorry, I thought we had some planning and zoning
Well, it's-
business to do
That's
as
her
well.
title.
That's a part of planning and zoning is the health department.
All right, so at this time, we will take a recess as the Board of County Commissioners
There
at,
needs to be a motion to do that.
I so move
Thank
that
you.
we recess.
I'll second the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. The Board of
That
County
was
Commissioners
unanimous.
is in recess at 10:48. And I will call to order the Board of Health Department for any business to be transacted. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Smith, would you like to explain the situation up to this point?
And with Jackie's help, because this is an issue she's been working on for a couple of years, I think, and the gentleman, Mr. Carpenter, is here. We had a meeting on September 19th. Mr. Carpenter and his wife live at the address in Silver Cliff Heights, but it's a property that does not have a septic system, and that's a violation of our regulations regarding on-site wastewater treatment systems. And at that time, the Board of County Commissioners talked to Mr. Carpenter and gave him until the end of this year to get a septic system installed that would meet all of the requirements. But they put it on for a review today to see what progress was being made. I spoke to Ms. Hobby about this last week, I guess, and she said Mr. Carpenter has not been able to get anything done at all yet as far as getting the septic system installed. Right now, the commissioners approved a temporary, what do you call that when they get the temporary?
Variance, porta potty.
Okay, so
That's what's there now.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what's been used, but that is a temporary thing. So Mr. Carpenter is here to explain what's been going on and why he hasn't done anything yet as far as getting this system installed. So if you want to have
Okay.
Mr. Carpenter
Thank
come
you, sir.
forward. Yeah.
Mr. Livengood, could you see if there's a chair available out there for Mr. Carpenter, please?
Yes, I can.
And thank you.
Not only that, you did it.
Thank you, thank you. Mr. Carpenter, would you like to come forward, please?
Good one, sir.
Good morning, Tom Flower. Hi. Meet you. Nice to meet you. Thanks for being here today. In light of what the counselors said, Jackie certainly will defer to you if you want to pursue this. Mr. Carpenter, you would like to make some comments, you're welcome to do that as well.
Mr. Carpenter, septic permit does not expire until January 1st. He has, this is the second time around that Mr. Carpenter has purchased a septic permit. He purchased one in 2013, the same time that he took out the dwelling permit. I'm just going to give you some background.
Right.
Okay, so then Mr. Carpenter was notified that the septic had expired and he needed to renew it. And so in 2016, he got another one. The state of Colorado states that a septic system permit is only good for a year unless the zoning office or, the sanitarian can determine that they are making progress on a house. And at that time, Mr. Carpenter was making progress on the house. So we allowed him 2 years on this particular permit, correct. Mr. Carpenter did his due diligence by going and getting a porta potty and satisfying where the waste was going. That way, and he does have a contract with the local to clean it and stuff, because one of our biggest goals is to make sure that the human waste is going into a satisfactory system, whether it be pumped out or anything. But the state of Colorado will not allow a home to be serviced by a porta potty. It has to be serviced by a vault system or a approved septic system, which comes with a leach field. Although times we're not here to hang Mr. Carpenter. We all hit bad times, and at the time before Mr. Carpenter came in, he identified the financial difficulties that he personally is enduring to install this septic system. 2-bedroom home is the minimum that you can install. If you got a fairly decent deal on a septic system, you're looking at $5,000 to $6,000 to have a septic system installed, and it keeps going up and up and up. And we do require the minimum would be that, depending on what Mr. Carpenter's perk test, or now it's a soil evaluation, comes out. But I think Mr. Carpenter would like to speak to what happened at the last meeting and what was promised to him and how it all fell through and why he's still in this situation.
Did they ever do a perk test?
Yes.
Yes.
Perk test was done in the first couple of years.
Yes.
So perk test has been done and it
Yes,
passed?
Passed, yes.
Yeah, we require that before we give you a dwelling permit.
Okay. Mr. Carpenter, you have the floor. If you'd like to address the board, please do so.
Okay. Well, I've been trying to come up with things to pay for this septic and have it installed. Nobody finances a septic. I have 2 RVs in front of my house that I originally lived in when I moved here. I'm trying to sell both of them right now to get the money to get this going. I'm still having trouble with my lawyer, and I need to go to Pueblo and get me a better lawyer because he's not getting anywhere on anything. He will not even answer my emails anymore.
We don't know anything about
Yeah.
it.
Well, let me
Tell him why. Okay.
Well, I was just going to say, Mr. Carpenter says that there's an inheritance that he is supposed to receive,
Yes, sir.
and he had a lawyer working on it. I didn't really have any other information besides that, but that he's he was indicating before his lawyer wasn't responding to him, and it sounds like that's the same thing.
Yes, it's still the same
Okay.
thing. So I'm just going to have to go get a different lawyer to get this done because I don't think he knows what he's supposed to be doing or how to do it. He keeps calling me, asking me questions in the beginning.
So how far along is the house?
The house is probably 3/4 of the way done.
And you're living in it now?
Yes, sir. As approved by the last meeting.
Right. And Mrs. Hobby said you had some backstory about what you had been promised. Can you address that?
Well, I guess at first there was, I don't know, it was probably mostly my misunderstandings. I was trying to get, take the test to install my own septic system while I was building my house. And I guess, I didn't get it done. And I kept going back and I kept just worried about building the house. Trying to get it closed in before winter set in and, destroyed everything I started on.
And you're currently using a porta potty?
Yes, sir.
How many people at the residence?
It's just me and my wife. My son's moved to Iowa since we've been here.
Where'd you say it was?
It's in 252 Ferris Drive in Silver Cliff Heights.
Have we had any complaints or issues with neighbors?
One. That's what brought this to that's what escalated it to this point. Prior to this, we were trying to work it out by letters and stuff, and then it got to a complaint.
Okay. Yes, sir. Please.
If I might add something, Mr. Carpenter, if I'm not saying this correctly, please correct me if I'm not correct. If I remember at the last time we met, we said that up to that point, there had been multiple variances to try and get this done. The promise was that if we gave one more, we would get something working and moving forward. I'm kind of in a precarious position because I know when you and your wife, and I respect you both. In fact, I believe I'm the attorney you're having trouble with is someone I may have recommended to you.
Yes, sir, David Thompson.
Yeah, I did. I recommended him to you. You and I spoke, I believe, after the meeting, and I told you I would contact him. And I think his concern is, right, wrong, or indifferent, I'm not standing up or sitting down, but he wanted to get paid. And that was the issue. It sounds like something that can be worked through. There are public legal aid offices, and I'll be happy to give you the names of those if you'd like, that may or may not be able to assist you. I don't know that. But here's what my concern is. My concern is that this has been going on for quite a long time. We're very empathetic. We really care about our citizens. And when the real question the last time we met was, do we put a cease and desist and lock the door and throw you out? And we said, that's not what we do here. But the commitment on the other side was, and tell me if I'm wrong, give me some more time, I'll get it done. And we asked you to come back and kind of give us an update. So I'm just trying to reiterate where we were.
Yes, sir.
So this was quite a while back, and now we're within a month basically of when it needs to be done. And there's no progress. And please explain to us why you feel we shouldn't put a padlock on there and say, I'm sorry, you can't go to your own home until you have met the law.
I can't tell y'all what to do. I mean, it's not my decision. Not my decision what this commission does.
It's your decision whether to move forward with the septic system in some form or fashion.
Tell them about how your job's been sporadic.
Yeah, help us.
Yeah, I was going to ask him.
Okay, well, I do stucco work, and stucco work is seasonal work.
I agree.
That ended in November. I have been trying to get on with the drilling company because that's quick money because they're not going to be here very long. And they're wanting to work 12-hour shifts, every day.
We're
no
talking
days
about
off.
the local drilling company.
The local drilling companies out here on.
Right. They're doing.
I'm not sure. There's two different companies out there right now, but I'm trying to get employed with them right now so I can get something going.
Can I say one other thing? Because Mr. Carpenter talked about some promises. There was another thing that was brought up at the meeting on September 19. Commissioner Katnick said that he was going to work with Mr. Carpenter to help him find some weekend work.
Right.
And
Yes.
it's my understanding.
I never got called.
Okay, well.
What day was that?
It was September 19th when we had the last time we had a meeting when Mr. Carpenter was here. I know Commissioner Katnick made that offer, but whether...
Does he still need a soil analysis now under the
No,
new rules? Because does his perk test still apply?
It'll still apply.
So you and your wife are both unemployed at the time, or?
Yes, sir.
Can I ask a question? If we, what plan do you have if we say, Mr. Carpenter, in the spirit of the holiday, in the spirit of our county, in the spirit of a resident, we wanted to give you more time. What I'm concerned about is continuously putting this off without any progress being made. And I hope you can understand our position. The last thing I want to do is put you out. That's the last thing in the world I personally want to do, and I'm certain that my fellow commissioners, Ms. Hobby, and everybody in this room, that is not what we do here. But we do need to have, I mean, we have laws, and they're state laws. They're not even our local laws. And we, you know, we've kind of stretched them and bent them, but we need some kind of commitment from you saying, if you give me till February 28th, or whatever date you tell us, I agree that I will either have it in progress, I will have it done, or I agree that I'm going to have to do something else, I'll live somewhere else until I could have that done. And I'm not saying we would agree to that, that's not, I'm just one vote here, but I need some kind of...
Okay, well... Before you say anything, just another piece of information is ground's going to be freezing. It's going to be awful hard to get somebody to...
Last meeting, I offered to have my hole and my leach field dug so that when I get it done, it can be done. I was told, no, you cannot have a hole that big in your yard.
By who?
By Donna Hood.
How come she knew anything about that?
She was commissioner at that time.
Ask the zoning
Well,
officer.
yeah, if we go that route, obviously I think our zoning officer would be the person to at least give us direction on whether or not you could pre-dig a hole for a septic tank.
Okay, can I make a comment?
Certainly.
Okay, my comment is that Mr. Carpenter is trying his hardest when you have no income. Septic system is the least thing that you want. You want food in your stomach, and he has animals to feed. And we are now heading into the frost. And no, we've had warm weather and stuff, but soon. So even if Mr. Carpenter got the money, the digging would be twice as much and the work would be harder because of the frost and stuff.
That's why I brought it up.
So I have no problem. Mr. Carpenter is using a porta potty. It's no different than someone going out to lake and with a motorhome and using the holding tanks. I have no complaints now from the neighbors about the porta potty.
What was the complaint then?
That he was living out there with no septic.
Oh.
And so what I would like to see is that Mr. Carpenter be able to get on his feet. And we do have some local contractors that I could contact that might be willing to go out there and at least help Mr. Carpenter out for the digging part. Septic tank alone, the minimum is $800.
Okay.
To dig it or to
buy tank.
To buy the
to buy the tank, the plastic
And
tanks.
would you object to pre-digging his hole?
No.
For the septic tank? I would like to ask you, as a zoning office, tell us what our options are, and then after that, I would like to ask you for your recommendation.
The state of Colorado, if we're going to go by the state, says that you cannot live in any structure now without a flushing toilet. And it has to, because now the septic regs and the plumbing code are all tied in with each other. And so the state of Colorado would not, but locally we can make some little adjustments and stuff, but it would not pass the state code. The only thing I'm concerned about is where the human waste is going, because I don't want you to do your duty outside and then, or carry it in a 5-gallon bucket somewhere and dump it. The porta potty satisfied that. My recommendation is to figure out a time that, and give Mr. Carpenter a little bit more time, if possible. Mr. Carpenter came in like he was supposed to. He's seen me twice. He seen me about a month ago, and he said that he was out of work and he was trying his hardest. And I'm not for violating, like, you have to have a septic, but he doesn't. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that everyone's down on their luck. Please give Mr. Carpenter more time.
Can you get the hole done?
Yes, Vernon Collins told me he would work with me on the labor part of
That's
putting in my
progress.
septic.
And
It's just his three. He said it's a minimum of $3,000 to get the tank and all the stuff that goes with your leach field.
That's right.
That sounds very.
And that's a ton of money for me.
Yeah.
If I could, I'm sorry, one of the reasons I got to this point is because the party who complained to Jackie's office also complained to the state, and she was being contacted by the state. What are you doing on this? You got to get this taken care of. That's why.
The person that complained sat out there for 3 months in a tent and never had a septic or a porta potty.
Can you handle the state with the suggestion you've got? Is that going to be able? You're going to be able to make a case that says progress being made and we're okay?
Okay. How much time do you think is reasonable if we want to extend it again? Is 6 months too long, or is that
I'd say
reasonable?
It's got to be 6 months. March and April.
Winter is what I'm trying to think of.
Yeah.
So the end of June.
I say the end of June.
Which would put us, again, meeting the 1st of July.
And I'll have to come get another permit first of the year?
No.
No. I say that this, may I speak again? If you would allow Mr. Carpenter to have until the 1st of July to get the septic in, he has already paid $225 twice. He doesn't need to pay it again. Would that be yours? Thank you.
And
You
as,
extend the permit.
as Commissioner Candace spoke to, the perk test is valid. Won't have to do that again.
Correct.
I agree with what Mrs. Hobby is saying, that I think there are people in that profession in this valley that we could probably contact and see if they could help you to some degree. If you are not employed, would you consider trading some labor to a contractor? They come and dig your hole, put in a septic.
I don't
Would
mind
you at
working.
least, could we offer that to them, say, hey,
I
he
don't
would be
mind
willing to work with you on some other septic projects or whatever? Do you have a vehicle? Can you drive?
Yes.
You good for that? So I'm just trying to think of other ways we can be proactive. Certainly we all in this room know people we could suggest, at least that we talk to and say, hey, is there a chance we can help out? My concern is this: we keep dancing around this deal. The next thing we're going to be having a dance with the state, and then it's going to get a whole lot more serious because it will be above our jurisdiction. And they probably would not feel near as bad about putting you out of your home as we would. So back to the thing, if you think we can show reasonable advancement in this project to keep the state off our doorstep, then I think we've got some direction to go.
So, in light of the discussion and Ms. Hobby's recommendation, I'd like to move that we postpone any action till at least June 30th no new permits need to be pulled, and that a month prior to June 30th, maybe the end of May sometime, Mr. Carpenter could, and I don't mean to put you on the spot here, this is embarrassing for you. I understand that. If you could just maybe give Ms. Hobby an update on, here's where I am, I'll be done in a week or two, and she reports it to us. I'm fine, as long as we know what's going on, because I recognize this may be a little bit, so that...
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we have a problem with Mrs. Hobby representing you. It's not a problem. So don't feel like if I don't show up, they're probably gonna kind of frown upon me not being there personally. If you're working, certainly, would you gentlemen agree that here's going to be the thing that I look at when I base a decision on something. Has this gentleman been forthright, honest, and upfront? Has he made an effort to stay in contact with Mrs. Hobby? You know, if she comes back in May and says, man, I haven't heard from the guy, I know he's still out there, but then that's going to be a little different ballgame. But if you continue to be cooperative and stay in communication, I think we can all work together to get this resolved. I really do. So.
And I'm betting Vern needs the help. I know he needs help to build the thing, and you can be that labor.
Yeah, all right, I've already discussed that with him, and
So
he's the
there's
one.
actually been a motion.
Yes, I'm getting to that. And I actually took us down.
So I'm going to second that motion.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we grant an extension until June 30th for any further action on Mr. Carpenter's septic situation, and would like to review this 30 days prior to that. Yes, sir.
I had one other thing in the motion, that there would be no additional permitting fees.
Exactly.
Okay.
With no additional permitting fees being requested by the county. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion, opposed nay. Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Good luck.
You have to grab your chair.
Holler if we can help any other.
Thank you, sir.
You bet.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Next item on our agenda, Mr. Hyde, would
Let's see, do
be...
we have to re-adjourn?
Oh, that's correct. We're still in the Custer County Board of Health. Do I hear a motion to adjourn as the Board of Health?
So moved.
Second? Been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Board of Health is adjourned. Let me reconvene the Board of County Commissioners at 10:14.
Good.
Right, how are you, sir?
Hey, say, Gary,
Good.
got a cold hand. Where you been?
Sitting in the hallway.
Poor blood circulation, maybe. I don't know.
How are you doing?
Pretty good.
Good. Hermit Bridge.
Yes. The reason I wanted to meet with you this morning is to kind of bring the new commissioners up to speed on this
Okay.
and make you aware of what's going on with that. When I came on as the Road and Bridge Supervisor, it was in the works to replace Hermit Bridge on County Road 160 right outside of town. Well, initially, that project, and there's CDOT.
And just give us the full background. The reason being it's eroded out, it's cracked,
Well,
it's
well,
too
actually,
narrow.
The bottom third of the culvert is getting real rusty, and it's going to fail at some point in time.
Okay.
We're going to have holes develop in the rusty part of those 3 culverts. It's got 3 6-foot diameter culverts in it, and eventually those are going to develop holes, and then we're going to start losing material. CDOT goes in and they do a biennial bridge inspection on our bridges, and that one had a sufficiency rating of like 85 back in 2013. And then I think it was inspected in 15, 2 years later, and it had a sufficiency rating of like 64%, so it dropped like 21%. They rate these bridges on sufficiency ratings. A good sufficiency rating is 80 or above, and a poor sufficiency rating is like 50 and below. So it's
Getting to be poor almost.
yeah. So anyway, there was CDOT grant that was applied for to replace that bridge. And CDOT did award a grant to Custer County to replace that bridge. And at the time, the project cost estimate for that bridge replacement was $140,000. Well,
What was the grant for?
The grant it was an 80-20 grant, and the CDOT grant was going to fund $112,000 of that project, and then Custer County was going to be responsible for approximately $28,000. Well, since that grant was awarded for that project,
Which was when?
It was June, I believe, I think we got that awarded in June, wasn't it, Brenda?
Of 2017. Was that
Well, I
right?
mean, the grant was awarded in June of this year, right?
This year,
This
2017.
year?
I think it was
Yeah.
secured in June of this year. Well, one of the process was to submit proposals get proposals submitted from an engineering firm for the design phase of that project. Well, once we started doing that and got an engineering firm involved, they discovered that because of there being federal funds tied to this grant, the CDOT grant, that the project cost was going to jump significantly. It could cost upwards of $250,000.
Because of more inspections?
Inspections, permits, you have to do environmental assessment studies and things like that. I mean, they're just
We have a spotted owl down there?
Yeah. But it's that kind of stuff. I mean, it jumps the cost up significantly, even though it looks like a pretty simple project. And we don't have any choice, but if we're going to use a CDOT grant, we have to go by their rules and regulations.
So the rule says we go for federal money?
Pardon?
So
well, federal money is funneled down to CDOT. CDOT then distributes it to
so
the local agencies.
So they're
like
using
ourselves.
their requirements,
Yes.
passing those down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because there's federal fund money tied to this project, we have to go through their requirements.
May I ask, what was the proposal for replacement of those culverts? 3 more culverts going back in, box culvert?
I would go with an aluminum box culvert myself. It's got it's more of an open span culvert, and it'll carry more volume. If we're going to do the project, and especially if we're going to get grant money to do the project, we might as well over design it versus under design it.
From your perspective, do you, as a supervisor, you're viewing this project on hold right now?
Well, it was on hold because of lack of funds. You know, being so there was going to be a difference of like $110,000. That's why we put it on hold. But since then, Brenda applied for a DOLA grant. We did get grant money to come up with the balance for that
so
project.
there's another grant on top of this.
Yeah, so we do have another grant of $140,000 from DOLA to fund the balance of the difference of what it was going to be initially to where it is right now.
Yeah, and we did speak to that issue with Christie, as I recall.
Yeah,
and Bob Katdig did meet with some CDOT engineers, I don't know, not too long ago. They felt like it would cost less than $250,000.
So we have $250,000.
We've got the money in place.
So what's the issue?
There's no issue. I just want to bring you guys up to speed on the project and make sure that we've got your blessing to No, there is one issue. If we go with this federal money, the CDOT grant, if we did it ourselves, went out and did it ourselves with the DOLA money, it would probably cost $120,000 to $140,000. And the road would be closed for maybe 3 days maximum. But if we go with the CDOT grant, because of their inspections that they require and them overseeing the project, it could be closed for, well...
So what do you recommend, Gary? I mean, it sounds like you can do it. And is the DOLA grant tied to the CDOT grant at all?
No, it's not. We could go out on our own with the DOLA grant, but the problem with the DOLA grant is it's 50-50 matching grant. So if the project costs $140 at the most, we're going to be responsible for $70, and then DOLA is going to fund the other $70.
So we're responsible for another $30,000 over what we're already responsible for.
Well, $40,000, because right now we're responsible for $28, probably at the most, and then
another 40 gives 68.
Yeah. So we're going to save money if we go with the CDOT grant, but the road itself could be closed. Jimmy Hasten, he's the individual that, the engineer that takes care of local projects and grants for CDOT. At a meeting with him in Santa Isabel, he thought the road could be closed for upwards of 5 or 6 weeks.
Holy smokes. That'll help the speeding problem out there, won't it, Sheriff?
Yeah. What would you guess the time frame of replacing this? In the winter, spring,
When you do it when that
stream flows down.
Slow.
October or early spring, and because of going through using the CDOT grant and jumping through the hoops that they require, it would be October at the earliest. It would be fall of next year. And that's if we get on this right away.
Mm-hmm.
The engineering firm led me to believe, Atencio Engineering, they're the ones that submitted the request to design this or do this project for us. They thought if we started the design process of this bridge in October of this year, it would be at least a year before we could start doing the construction phase of it.
And if I may, just to bring my fellow commissioners up to date, Atencio did come and give us a presentation.
Who did?
The engineering firm,
Who did?
Atencio. And if I'm not mistaken, Kelly, I'm pretty sure this is in the minutes, that we chose them to be the engineering firm once we got this project approved.
Mm-hmm.
Is that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I thought we did.
Yeah, I think they were chosen, but it was put on hold because of the funds.
Because of the funds. It was put on hold. So.
And I did talk to CDOT about doing a detour, and they weren't in favor of it because of more funds involved and things like that, and having to acquire temporary right-of-way and easement to do that and things like that. So, that's the dilemma. Do we go with the CDOT grant basically? And I don't think it's going to be shut down for 5 or 6 weeks. I think maybe 2 to 3 at the most.
Total shutdown.
Yeah, to where traffic can't go.
Or you're waiting
They're
for somebody to
recommending-
come up here and inspect and all that.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
And they're recommending that the idea of putting a temporary culvert in probably to the north or the south, depending on private property owners' willingness to work for it. We couldn't put a temporary to get traffic or even a one lane.
Is that what you meant by a detour?
Mm-hmm. I'd like to talk to CDOT again about that because if we didn't combine that with this grant and the project itself, could we just go out on our own and do that? And
Right.
Why wouldn't you? You could.
Well, I don't know why we couldn't.
That's what I'm wondering, if
We could put our own
we can
detour in
contact
there.
an adjacent landowner and say, can we put a culvert in there that, number one, will handle the stream flow that time of year, which we would expect to be relatively low.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, even if we had to get down to one lane of traffic,
You could do it for less than 40K, a detour.
Yeah, a lot less. Most
now
likely.
if we go the CDOT route, and if they say, no, we're not doing a detour, that's the end of that. We don't have any say-so. Is that a correct assumption?
They wouldn't have any say in it, would they?
As far as the detour itself, well, that's something I
would
need
they
to.
care?
It'll probably have some
Well,
impact.
We have to
on
do
that.
I don't wanna
we have to
assume-
do a detour anyway, right? We're going to take
No.
them out around another road there, or we're going to go out on Schoolfield, or we're
Well,
going to do something.
we were thinking, we're going to do a detour regardless,
Right.
but we were thinking that we could do a detour just on the south side of that bridge.
Well, I understand that, but so CDOT doesn't care about where we put our traffic. Why would they care if we threw a culvert in a ditch somewhere?
I don't
Well,
know,
one, it'll be right near their construction
because it's
project.
CDOT. I mean,
Well, we ought to probably find that out before we make a decision. is the point.
Now, if we use CDOT grant, does that mean CDOT's going to do any or all of the work, or would we, as a county, do the work?
no, it's a general contractor that does the work, and we've got 3 general contractors that have expressed interest in it. So they do all the work; they just oversee the project, And as far as some of the paperwork and things like that, they will come out and they'll inspect the work as the engineering firm inspects it, and make sure that the engineering firm is doing things the way they're supposed to.
Sorry to interrupt, but at the stage we are now, some of the decisions don't have to be made at this moment, but we could approve the project pending additional decisions, but get the engineering firm starting to work on it so that we can meet the window of October next year to get the work done during the proper time frame. Does that make sense, or do we really need to have CDOT and this decisions made before we even start with the engineering firm?
Well, we don't need the engineering firm if we don't use the CDOT grant. They don't have to be involved in the design phase of the project.
Let me make a suggestion. The project's been approved, right? We decided last board did. They're gonna put this in somehow. The issue is whether we go CDOT or whether we do it ourselves. It sounds like the smart thing to do, if I'm hearing this right, is let CDOT give us the money, let us put a culvert in as a detour, save some money, and move ahead. And we don't know the details on that until, I would suggest, since I care about this because all of a sudden I'm the road and bridge guy on the board, why don't I and you go talk to the CDOT guys and see what we can come back with as what a plan might be. We can either recommend, that based on what they say, that we do it ourselves, or that we go with the CDOT thing and we're going to put a detour in this way, or we're going to just direct traffic around it and suck it up for 3 weeks.
And I can find that out pretty quick. I could find that out this afternoon, and then when I come back to the Road and Bridge meeting next week, I could probably, I think it's next week, I can have an answer for you on whether or not
Makes
we
sense,
can.
then.
And then I can get a cost estimate on that too.
Sure. So we don't have to have any motions. Let's just generally agree with the plan here.
I have a question. It actually may be more of a comment. Interesting enough, Commissioner Cannon and I sat in on a meeting yesterday, Road and Bridge.
Boy, do we have something cool for you, Gary.
But there was a kind of a long strand of question that generally comes before counties across the state on projects like this. Number one, do we have the ability as a county to do this ourselves? Is it more cost effective for us to do it ourselves as a county, or go the general contractor route? And then obviously the CDOT involvement. I'm sure you've thought about this. Is this project something the county could do on their own?
Yeah, absolutely. If we had the equipment. We'd have to rent the equipment. Basically what it would take is an excavator, and that's it.
Piece of cake for you.
Pardon?
That's what we ought to go look into.
In respect
We
to
could.
Commissioner Prince, because certainly you have been in on this from the beginning, I'm actually trying to sit here as a board member like it's the beginning and try to think of all the scenarios that could play out. They certainly could have already been discussed. I don't mean to indicate that they haven't been. If that discussion's already occurred and you've reached the point where we're at today, that's fine.
I'm fine with these kind of discussions were had, but it's a different time. It's a new day. Let's open the question up again, and if the consensus is that it would make more sense for us to do it, I'm fine.
Hold on just a second. Let him finish, please, and then I will. Hold on.
It concerns this.
Please, hold on. Let Mr. Prince finish what he was saying.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'll get to you in just a second. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just saying that I personally, even though we've had these discussions, this is a significant project. I think we ought to open the questions back up, look at it again, and make the best decision we can.
Like the DOLA grants.
Maybe an educational process. All right, at this time, yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Are you aware that that bridge is just south of my mother's artesian well?
Yes.
What are you going to do? Does the Corps of Engineers have to be involved because the surplus from the well goes into Grape Creek? In fact, it keeps Grape Creek from going dry in the summer lots of times.
They are involved.
They are involved.
We
yes,
have to go
ma'am.
through them and get a permit.
Okay.
Yep.
I just wanted to be sure.
Yeah, thank you for
Good
that.
point.
I have met with them
And
out there.
Gary's met with him. He just said if you didn't hear him.
We've looked at it, and they said there shouldn't be an issue on getting a permit. So
I don't want to run backwards on this whole project, again, in respect of the work that's been done. If you feel like it's a viable thing, then we can look at another route, if we can do it more economically, and certainly, probably, in my opinion, in a faster time frame than if we're involved with CDOT. I would encourage us to look at that. Again, I'm not trampling over work that has been
Let's
done
go
prior
talk to CDOT and get some options.
Yes, sir. Mr. Prince.
Can I suggest maybe a workshop where we have the players sit down for an hour or two and just discuss it? I mean, I'm not sure this really needs to be part of the board discussion at this point, but we could have a workshop where we bring up what we've been, where we've been, and decide if that's still the course of action we choose to take or not.
and if we do a workshop like that, I could involve Amanda with Tenseo Engineering,
That's what
their
I'm
chief engineer, and then Jimmy Hasten, the project manager for CDOT that works for SEH. I will add one thing. If we did try and go out and do this on our own, if we're not going to save very much money, it does pull my guys away
right.
from
That's right.
projects.
That's part of the trade, Gary.
Yeah, so to me, and we probably wouldn't save a tremendous amount of money by the time we rented a piece of equipment like an excavator and things like that, we'd be better off just having a general contractor do it, even if we didn't utilize that CDOT grant. So.
And that's what part of the discussion.
Exactly, and
But we
that's-
ought to have them together.
that would
Okay,
be-
so come back to us later.
Okay.
Yeah, anything else, sir?
That's it for me for today.
All right, thank you for
Sure.
getting us updated. Appreciate that. And you feel confident that I can continue to drive over that bridge between now and when we meet again?
Well, it's still in fair condition.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
You'll be the first to know if that becomes the case.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
I've had a request from Donna Hobby if you guys could do the vouchers and checks, approve the vouchers. So
Okay,
she
then
can
she
get the
can be-
checks printed.
Okay.
If you could move that up.
The first item under new business.
Probably should.
Chairman, I have
Takes
two,
an hour right here.
if it's okay for me to speak, I have two items on the vouchers that I would like a little bit more explanation on, if I may, please.
Go ahead, sir.
The first one was Pipette Services for $120. I thought we were done with Mr. Pipette. Is he still on retainer with us?
He is, I believe, because he has to come next week and present the final budget.
Okay,
So,
okay. And then I have just one other that just kind of got me a little nutsy. I noticed that we have a $400 voucher for gym membership to Altitude Fitness Center. What is that?
that's the sheriff's department. I'll let Shannon address that. Is he out there still?
Hello, Shannon.
Is the sheriff out there?
He's at the gym. 10:30 appointment.
There's a question for you on the vouchers.
Sheriff, hello, sir.
Hi, how are you, sir?
Good. I just had a question. I was running through the vouchers, and I didn't know what area this came from, what division it was, but I saw that we had a $400 check to the Altitude Fitness Center for gym membership, and I was questioning where that was, and I'm learning that's your department. Is that?
That's correct. So what we do is,
I saw that as
on
well. I just
Emergency
wanted to-
Services Fund, the first page.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
that's fine. So what we do is so my agency or office, so we help the members of our agency to be able to work out at Altitude Fitness. So we alternate month to month. We have an agreement with Altitude. It's $400 a month for all of the members of my agency to take part in the services provided there. So it's in my budget, in our budget line, and so the members pay half of the membership, and then my office pays the other half, and so we alternate month to month. 1 month we pay $400, the next month they do. And
I think it's perfectly appropriate for your officers to stay in shape.
Well, that's
and
the
if you
reason
have
I
to go
did it
running
is-
down the street after someone, but he didn't say it was your department, I wouldn't even ask. Thank you.
We don't want to send the ambulance after one of them.
Right.
That's only two questions I have.
If they have to go somewhere.
Thank you.
on
No,
foot, I want
I'm
them to be
fine
able
with
to.
it, I just didn't understand what it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
And you said you had a couple of things, sir?
Those were the
Okay.
two I had.
I had this question partially answered this morning. $2,790. I'm kind of directing my comments back towards Brenda as well for Mountain Maids. I had a question of the cleaning. Was it just a courthouse? And I was informed that it was a courthouse and the annex. I guess my question would be this: as a new commissioner, was this contract put out to bids? Do you know?
Yes, it was.
And when was that? Within the is it a calendar year?
Yes, it was after our maintenance person left in March, I think it was, and then it was put out to bid in the April timeframe. April, May timeframe.
What was the total? It was like
$2,790 a
$2,700
month.
per month.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
For the courthouse and the annex. And is that,
And the airport. They don't do the airport?
They do not do the airport.
I thought you guys did your own down there, right?
No, Anthony does the airport.
Right. Your useful public service? Yeah. But the airport is not part of this cleaning contract?
It is not, no.
Thank you, sir. Is that something that's reviewed every year, do you know, or?
This is the first time that we've not had a maintenance person on
Okay.
staff.
So we're kind of in new.
Yeah,
New
I mean, you
territory.
could ask Kelly because Kelly's been here forever, and she has.
Forever is a
So
long
she has
time.
more of a knowledge of the history of the maintenance
Okay.
of the courthouse.
And then I guess I'm under the assumption that this is strictly cleaning, not maintenance. Is that correct?
That's true.
Okay. So those would be two different
Right.
items there, but.
The guy that did it all resigned.
And is typically that contract on an annual review or renewal, or, I mean, we haven't had it
In
really.
the past, this is really the first time that we've had a contract with an outside business. It's always been that they actually hire somebody as a county employee to either do the cleaning and the maintenance together, one person does it, or they'll hire a part-time cleaner and then a maintenance person. But the maintenance
Both,
person...
they were county employees.
Yes, the maintenance person usually is more full-time because there's a lot of maintenance. I mean, it's not just changing light bulbs, it's doing the lawn, they've taken care of the scale house in the past, just different things like that.
So do we have a maintenance person then?
Sort of.
Why is that sort of?
Well, we have a maintenance person that works up to 15 hours a week. So
That's
he's
not a
basically
county
just
employee.
here when we
That
need
wasn't a
him.
prior county employee, it's an outside person. we
It's an
hired.
outside person.
So it's an outside contract for maintenance too?
Yep. Mr. Prince? Go ahead.
I'd just like to comment, we tried very hard to find a full-time employee to do this, and if I'm not mistaken, that we did not get applicants or any qualified applicants, and that's why, as an alternative, we went to the firm to do the cleaning and a part-time person to do that. The intention was to have a full-time person. We wanted to replace a full-time person, but that didn't work out.
Good. As it stands now, I'll get to you in just a second, though. Would it be reasonable to say that this contract is in place through the end of the year? Are we going to look at this again in January, or what's your feelings about that?
I guess Donna Hobby probably has the whatever contract was signed,
Okay.
and that should say if
Okay.
it's for a year, or if it's 6 months, or if it's month.
For both the cleaning and the maintenance?
The maintenance.
There are two contracts?
No, the maintenance guy is just
Almost as needed, huh?
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
how are we paying him? We got a
By the
contract
hour.
vehicle or
A
something?
voucher.
Yeah.
He gives us a bill.
Yeah, he gives us an invoice and we pay him.
Paying him on an hourly basis?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Could you follow up with Mrs. Hobby on that
Yeah.
cleaning contract? I certainly don't have an issue with it. It's an educational effort on my part.
You know, I understand we're paying him, but don't we have an agreement that he'll work for us? There must be an agreement of some kind.
I'll have to ask Donna.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
That's all right. I just wanted to let you know, as far as the search and rescue building, where my office is and Posse meets and a lot of the other emergency services meetings, we did not get into that contract, but search and rescue is looking to contract with McKinsey in the beginning of 2018. And Larry Weber has come up with a formula where the sheriff's office and emergency management and search and rescue will split that. And so that's in my budget for 2018, and I believe it is with Shannon's as well. So if there are new contracts or something, just keep us in the loop.
Okay.
But I think Search and Rescue's board is writing their own independent contract agreement with the vendor, and then we'll contribute to that. And my plan was to contribute my approximate 1/3 just in one voucher to Search and Rescue and not do it every month.
Who did it before, just out of curiosity?
Search and rescue
In-house?
volunteers.
The personnel.
So it's in-house always.
Right.
The maintenance guy we had before was just doing the courthouse.
That's correct.
Okay.
Same with the sheriff's office. My personnel take care of the sheriff's office. We don't have anyone coming in.
And if we move forward, would it make sense or be valid to look at a full-time person to do all of these buildings, including yours and the courthouse and the annex? One person to do all of
Or a
that?
full-time company of some kind.
Or not one person, but an entity, yes, thank you. What do you think about that, Mr. Byerly? And do you have concerns about somebody else coming into the sheriff's department and
Yeah.
cleaning?
That is the concern. I mean, it's a controlled space. We don't want just general access to, we have personnel files and then the jail, and we have our own security challenges with the building as it is. We can handle it ourselves. We have staff on duty 24/7. We can take care of it.
So we wouldn't be sending a message to you all to say, obviously, they don't care about us getting our buildings clean. They're more worried about the courthouse and the
No,
annex.
it's my request that you don't include me.
Okay.
Include us in that.
So the annex, the courthouse, and you.
Search and rescue, they're just cleaning the meeting area, the kitchen, and the bathrooms, and it's just once a week,
Right.
so that I don't have to go do that.
Right.
But the office areas of search and rescue, the bays, the gear room, and the upstairs
In-house.
OEM and posse are our own
Right.
responsibility.
If you come in after an incident, you're not going to be calling your cleaning vendor
No.
to come
Right.
tighten that
No,
up.
it's
So,
just really keeping those bathrooms and
would
kitchens.
you like to be included? I mean, do you want to keep it the way it is, that you can work with Sheriff Byerly and do your thing? Just looking for
I
direction.
think it works for our department,
Okay,
the way
if it
that
does,
search and rescue wants to do it.
Not broke, let's not fix it.
Right.
I like it, thank you. Just don't want to have the appearance of ignoring you.
I just wanted you to know what we worked out, so you
Okay.
were educated on
Good.
that.
Yes, sir.
Well, I was telling her, good job.
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah. Okay. I had some other questions. I think I got most of those answered.
I think I'm good, so what do you want to do?
I do have
Mr.
one
Chairman?
question versus the vouchers, and I'm sorry I didn't write down the department. Sandra Hernandez's training. Is that through the sheriff's
That is
office?
the
It is.
the victim advocate.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, and that's fully funded through grant.
Okay,
So that,
pass through.
yes, we do the vouchers, but then it's all 100%
It's
reimbursed.
in and out.
Yep, thank you.
So
At this time, Chair would entertain a motion to approve the,
I move that we approve the vouchers as submitted.
I'll second it.
been moved and seconded to approve the vouchers for the November 30th meeting. Any further discussion, questions, comments? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion, opposed nay. Motion carries.
Do we want to break and sign these puppies so we can?
Well,
Well, she's
How do you want to do this?
you have to
initial.
initial
Yeah,
them,
initial 'em, I do.
then I take them over to Donna,
Print 'em.
and then she prints them and she'll bring them back for you to
And you'll
sign.
need all three initials?
Yes.
Yes.
So, and each of the
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, would you
Break this
I
up.
request 5 or 10
Thank
minutes.
you. I think that's right where we were headed. Yeah, we will be in recess for 5 minutes, recess beginning at 10:43. Me too. Okay, let's go play. Sit here all this time and then have to go into recess. So, yeah.
I'm going to start on the 5. There's some.
You should sit on those.
She didn't care where we initially.
I guess not.
I just was.
I'm wondering.
By staff on each page.
They're in the middle with all the
I
fire.
think you have to hit each one.
Brenda?
Hey, Brenda. Brenda,
Get
you want an initial on each item or the page?
system.
Jay, where Jay already initialed,
Yeah, that's what I
so you need
thought. So
initial.
that's all we got to do.
Yeah, just the
Just
front
the top,
page.
okay.
All
Yep.
right, good.
100, 700, and I showed her yesterday how to.
And then I'll take them over to her so she can print those. And then she'll bring you the checks and you get to sign and sign and sign and sign and sign.
When there's a
After the meeting,
Yeah.
we're not going to take time during.
If you're stuck online, you just pop it
I'm
up the
surprised
window.
we haven't had to come up with a signature sheet and initial sheet. You know, we signed the 3 signatures.
Used to be when you took it in
Surprised
person.
that we didn't
and
have to
there would be a
include
written test.
initials on that as well. But
Christy would help.
thank you for your help. Appreciate it.
And you got all these?
I believe so.
Okay.
If you want the one-on-one class with the war stories in it, which can be
And
interesting.
typically, does the courthouse have some water somewhere?
Um,
I forgot to bring some, but.
I have, it's not cold, but I have some under the sink back
You're
there.
getting the email.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome very much,
We're
ma'am.
gonna try, I'm working on a finance procedure and then for 2018 and 19, a lot of my focus and hopefully we stay that way is gonna be on alert notification and evacuation and reentry and just EOC operations. So, depending on what the board lets you do, when we have another big one, I know. Before and Nancy. Yeah, Nancy wasn't too involved in the technical part, but we do need butts and seats and we ran a joint incident command post and emergency operations center during that first week, and I thought it worked out really, really well.
In our house.
Yeah, we moved, instead of doing the EOC in the SAR building, Dave called at like 5:30 in the morning. He said, "What do you think about coming here?" And we all did it together, and it was great because it gave us a lot better situational awareness. Bouncing between buildings. So yeah, it was my first. It was definitely my first rodeo. It was.
That was the day we found our house online.
Oh really?
So they called my, well, I worked with my realtor at the time, so I ran to her office, and I was like, we found our house. And then I called my husband, and I was like, we have to go to this house. And then I called my best friend, and I was like, I found this house in West.
Where you at?
West was on fire. And I'm like,
Anyway,
it is?
I'll let you know.
How do you know?
Sounds good.
We moved from Florida.
Okay. So where are you at now? In town or back there? Oh, okay, back there. Nice. And Roger, I'm gonna get with Christy. Do you prefer on that 402 plus? I talked to Donna Hobby yesterday. Commissioners don't have any CTSI conferences or anything in January. So their calendar, I'm gonna nail them down in my report next week. But do you want morning, afternoon, evening? I mean, some of your folks work. What do you get with Christy to move on? I think, like 2 to 4. Well, and Stacy can just sneak off of work and come. Do you want to do like 10 to noon or 2 to 4 or I'll pitch some okay? Okay.
How long does the class take?
Well, last time we didn't make it all the way through, and so I told Christy, come on, and it comes back down to the horror stories, and it wasn't just Christy telling the horror stories. Bob and some of the others, but we've got to just stop, So somehow we'll put a like a cussing jar out there and say it's $1 a war story, ante up, because we got to keep moving through. $5? Okay, $5 a yeah, and then I'll put it back to Christy, because I'd like to do it in January or
December.
Well, and these guys are going to be drinking from the firehouse anyway, but your board and then.
I'm gonna make some coffee cards.
Senior commissioners and Jay wants to come in. I don't know that there's anybody doing West Coast, so it's really going to just be close to you guys. And then sneak a these 2 in. Yeah, so let me know. But,
Find out what Stacy's pregnant. What date are you talking about?
Briefly.
Yeah, what he said, any.
When the car doesn't get in the day, probably.
Let me look at my calendar. Because I believe my sticky and your thing is hanging up on the wall. I think he said anytime the week of the 8th, or maybe the 5th. And I don't know what Christie's calendar is. Don't quite hear it. I mean, I can go out another week and I can.
We will reconvene the Board of County Commissioners meeting at 10:52.
Excuse me.
It's like we got a dance going on.
Why, it is. We have a party out there.
Does she want a jacket?
She that or she She won, yeah, she won the lottery.
Again, thank you and welcome if you've come in since our recess. Glad to have you here. We did get the vouchers sent out, right? They picked them up after we were done with that. Better find my agenda or we won't have any clue where we're going. I've been asked if we could move the board of directors from the fire department up one issue. I guess my question would be transfer of funds with Virginia. Would that just take a motion to do that? Is that going to be a
Yeah,
long...
and you
I
can
just
probably do
call
it.
her. She's available.
So we don't have to do that right now, even though it's under old business. We
Right.
could jump down with
What's old business?
E911.
E911, you mean?
Cindy, would you mind if we...
Samantha
Are you on
and
a-
Bucker here on.
So you have a visitor here?
Well,
Guest? Okay. Let's go ahead then with the enhanced 911 intergovernmental agreement. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Tom Flower.
Okay.
Thank you for
Morning,
being here.
Mr. Chair,
Bucks.
Mr. Commissioners.
I'm not going to get away without shaking my hand. I'm sorry.
This is Samantha Moose. She's our secretary treasurer for the 911 Authority Board.
Nice to meet you.
She's the brains behind our whole outfit. We're here to answer any questions with respect to the signing of the IGA that you may have, provide an overview or whatever you'd like us to do.
Overview would be useful since
I'm sure we have all, as I have reviewed this agreement, anything in here unusual, out of the norm?
It was originally created in 2008 when the board met
Can you
in...
speak up, Buck?
Had laryngitis for like a week, sorry. Excuse me. When the IGA was created in 2008, it hadn't been updated since. There was a lot of semantics, protocols that we needed to tidy up. Judge Smith was good enough to review the document for us. One of the things that we did modify was the Board of County Commissioners has 2 positions on the authority board, and we did relax it to where it doesn't require both 2 commissioners. So if you wanted to appoint somebody else within the county system to seat on the board, but it still does require the chair, because the chair and the secretary, it requires 2 signatures for any voucher payments.
Thank you. Samantha, anything?
No. We did include the year-to-date profit and loss in there as well, to show you what the board has spent out and what has been made, as well as what is currently sitting in both bank accounts is on there as well.
And then the $300,000 potential equipment upgrade, I believe, was on a sheet somewhere.
That's a guesstimate. One of the functions of the 911 Authority Board is, of course, we're the gatekeepers for all of the 911 surcharge fees, not taxes, that come in as from the hardwire and the wireless vendors. It's the responsibility of the Authority Board to provide maintenance and equipment for the 911 center. Unfortunately, next year in 2018, all of our equipment, the 911 phone system, the instant recall recorder, IRRs, as well as the digital radio system, are due for total replacement. So the sheriff is doing due diligence now. Excuse me. They're entertaining vendors that specialize in PSAPs with less than 10 positions. They're seeking bids, and hopefully by January they'll have a pretty good guesstimate of how much the replacement will cost for us.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
First and foremost, I'd like to compliment both of you on the work that you've done on this. This is, it's a significant piece of work, and I really appreciate it. Couple of questions. We met, I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago, and thank you for the insight. And one of the questions that came up was, the funding on this comes from the cell phone fee that's currently $1.25, and if I'm not saying this right, please correct me. It's currently $1.25 per cellular line, is my understanding. The maximum that it could go to is $1.75, and what that would take is going to the PUC and making a request. It's not a tax increase, so it's not a Tabor issue. It's just a notification or request to the PUC.
That's correct.
And that is where the funding will come to take care of this. At this point, you're not asking the county to fund anything in this interagency agreement. Is that correct?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay, that's good. That's what I thought. I just wanted to get that on the record and make sure we understood everything that's going on here.
Have other entities signed your agreement yet?
Yes.
Everybody's signed except for the clinic, and I just got to go pick it up.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to clarify, it's landlines and cell phone
Oh.
lines, and so some of the funding drops
Thank
with
you.
landline usage dropping, and we're gonna do a public education
Nice.
campaign at Benign Health Fair to get folks to check their cell phone bills and make sure that their service fees aren't going back to Thornton or Texas or
Right.
wherever they moved here from, to make sure that we're getting those funds here.
Thank you for that, because the recent conversations have kind of been around cellular use and
Right.
not landline, so I
But
appreciate you
landline
bringing
use
that
is
up.
dropping.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, granted, it is dropping, but wasn't aware of that, so thank you for that.
Samantha completed a packet for everybody with a clean IGA. There's a P&L on there, and we included the state statutes with respect to 911 surcharge fees. It's a real quick read, but it'll give you a real good overview. And
I move that the Board of Commissioners sign your intergovernmental agreement.
All right, I'll second it.
Thank you. Been moved and seconded that the enhanced 911 IGA be signed by the Board of County Commissioners. Any further discussion, comments?
No, I think they did a great job.
Good, I do too. Thank you. Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. The intergovernmental agreement will be signed by myself. I believe it's the only signature required. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
And Mr. Chairman, I do have one other point to make.
Go ahead, please.
There are now 2 vacancies on the E911 board, and the next meeting will be in January, so I don't know if those appointments have been made.
You don't need a printed name on that. Don't need a printed name, thank you.
No, just a sign.
What are the 2 positions?
Donna Hood and Bob Katnick's positions on the E911 authority are vacant right now, and to make a quorum, you'll need to make sure that at least, I don't know when the January meeting is, Samantha, but as long
January
as it's
24th.
after the January appointments.
24th at 3:30, and we always have them at the search and rescue building.
And it'll be a 2-year appointment, and
Who's eligible?
the county, there are 2 county positions by the new IGA. They're either both commissioners. One is a commissioner of signature authority. The other county appointment can be made by the commissioners to someone within the county, so they can decide. And it's a 2-year appointment, and any commissioners leaving terms of office, their term is limited by their term of office.
A county, it has to be a county employee or a
I
county
believe that's the
resident?
way it's written in the IGA, but it's very specific in the IGA too.
Has to be a county.
And then
employee.
beyond that, there are, to answer your question, the town of Silver Cliff has an appointee, town of West Cliff, hospital district, Wet Mountain Fire District, and the school district. So there's 7 appointments.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. Do we want to deal with that now?
Well, hey, I think she said 1 January.
Yeah, we
Make sure
redo
that-
the appointments, and all of the positions will be up for renewal at that time as well.
I'm needing
Select
signature
commissioner.
authority, so it'd be me
Yeah,
and
we
you.
can-
I'm a
Pick
trustee
somebody
for
else's
Silver Cliff,
volunteers.
so that's where my appointment came from. West Cliff has an appointment, and the townships, we do redo all our committees in January.
Well, are there checks that are going to need to be signed between now and then?
That's what I wondered, do we need to get?
My checks right now, it's not just a commissioner, there's me. Dawn is also on there as well. Dawn is a signatory as well. And she's been the one I've been using because I know you guys have extremely busy schedules. I think I only had Kit when he was on the board. He only had to sign one check for me.
So you can't function until...
Yeah. The board will continue to function.
You said Donna or
Yeah,
Donna?
Donna Hobby
Okay.
is a signatory as well. So she signs. She's usually the one I go to because I know your guys' schedules are busy. So
you can get, they don't need to fill the positions
That's what I'm
until
wondering.
Until January,
their first
yep.
meeting in January.
Mm-hmm.
Don't want to let that fall through the cracks. So. All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Coffee.
Oh, I'm good, thanks. Let's move on then to the items in old business. Board of Directors from the... Oh, she is here. Sorry, I thought she said they would call you, so let's do that. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I came in early. It's fine. Just whatever you want to do. I'm not here for that anyway. I'm just here to listen.
Okay, are you okay with that if we're jumping down the agenda?
Yeah, that's fine.
Is that all right? Gentlemen, you okay with that? Sure. Ms. Kanda? Okay. Board of Directors? Because we have a time conflict, that's why I'm asking that we jump down, so.
Roger Camper.
Good morning,
Yeah.
How are you, sir? Good to see you.
Roger who?
Sam Smith.
Hello, how are you?
Good to see you.
Congratulations all through.
Thank you.
Let's get this place a rocking and a rolling.
That's right. That's right.
Get on and get out.
Get on, get out. So what we're kind of here this morning for is the Corno Verde homeowners and groups out there, Corno Verde, Centennial Ranch, Timber Ridge. They're kind of trying to figure out a way that we can get the ISO ratings for their property down to a livable number. So one of the ways is to have a fire truck that is NFPA approved for ISO ratings, having trained fire personnel, having a building. So one of my comments was, Corno Verde is right next door to the airport. I said, I think you probably ought to talk to the airport and see how they could help in the situation. Because years ago when the airport was getting switched from Silver Cliff out there, my comment to Ray Pedro was, are you going to have a fire station out there, crash truck, and this type of stuff? And he said, nope, don't talk to me about it. So here we are a few years later, quite a few years later, having the same conversation that I had with him that day.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we work with you guys in getting this accomplished? Right now on our agenda, we have a new substation that we've got to fund for Lake Louise. And so that's kind of where we're sitting with that dollar figure. So, Jerry?
Mr. Chairman, it's my understanding you own a building there,
That's correct.
and that building is used for what?
I will defer to Mr. Anderson. I've been in that. I've attended several of their advisory board meetings, but I will let him speak to that.
Okay, at the present time, the airport owns a small utility tractor that we use for cutting weeds and plowing snow now and again. And we have a 2-ton plow truck. We have 3 bays in that building, and one of the bays is not being used. At our last meeting of the airport advisory board, I polled all our board members to tell me if they could think of what we might use that bay for in the next 5 to 7 years. And we all came up blank. We couldn't think of a thing that as an airport we would need that empty bay for. And so we are in agreement with the concept of housing a fire truck there.
And I know initial conversations was about using that north bay. My understanding now is that type 1 truck may not fit in there. Class 1 pumper may not fit in the north bay. Would that still be the situation if we had to use the center bay of that building?
Yeah, in fact, that was going to be my next suggestion, is to consider using the center bay rather than one of the end bays because of the overhead limitations.
And would you think then, and this is a question I guess for all three of you, that it would be better to leave those bays open, or would you anticipate having to close in that center bay for security reasons or whatever for a Class 1 truck that's in there?
I think one of the things that we also need to look at the same time is what is the FAA's requirements, obligations? You have a fire truck here now as an airport. What are they going to say? What kind of a truck? Does it have to be manned? Does it have to be so many gallons a minute?
Okay, and again, I would defer to Mr. Anderson.
We are not under any obligation to the FAA.
Good.
Okay, good. We, as a non-NIPIUS airport, as they call it, we have no obligation to the FAA
To meet any FFA requirements for a Class A type pumper?
No. The only FAA requirements that would apply to that airport would be on the licensed pilots and their equipment and their hangars. So
you just have to keep that fire truck off the runway, right?
But nothing pertaining to...
Nothing pertaining to the airport as overseen by the county commissioners.
Go ahead, sir.
I saw pictures of a beautiful white fire truck, 9,000 gallon. It sounded like you could buy the whole truck for the value of the wheels, basically, like $35,000. Has that progressed any? Is it still available? And where could that money come from?
So what, a 5,000 gallon a minute truck?
9,000 is
Or
what?
9,000 gallon truck?
Is it?
No,
I don't think.
No. You have the specs on the truck.
750 gallons, it's a 1,500 gallon a minute pump.
Okay.
It was an engine from Denver International.
Yeah.
It's
Not a crash truck, but a truck that was first on board.
It's Class A pumper qualified, correct?
Still available as far as we know.
It meets your requirements.
We do not have the funding in our budget to purchase that truck. We have suggested to the group of subdivisions, if you will, from that end that came to our board meeting to attempt to obtain funding, if they could, to purchase that truck. And then much as Conquistador Ski Area did for the fire department back in the 80s, did the exact same thing.
How was that received?
So we opened up that conversation with that group. We felt it prudent. We wanted to come to you to make sure that the information we had received is correct and that you were willing to consider a lease agreement with the fire department for a bay in that building for that purpose, and what the conditions would be of that lease agreement if we could reach one.
Okay. Well, as a board member, I've sat in on some of these meetings and certainly support the whole concept. Absolutely. I cannot speak for my cohorts here today, but we can certainly have this discussion.
I've
we need
sat
to
in
do
a few of
something.
them too.
To me,
Good
it's a
idea.
win-win. We've got to give those homeowners some relief out there if we can from their ISOs, and we get fire coverage on that airport. I mean, I don't know how we could ask for anything better. I do want to throw out, I did a little research. The U.S. Department of Agriculture's Rural Development Program has a grant, community development grant,
facilities,
and it covers facilities, vehicles, some other things in there, but I wanted to give that to you to follow up with that. Interestingly enough, the USDA has an office in Alamosa. We really don't fall under their jurisdiction. We fall under Denver's jurisdiction when it comes for grant writing. I would suggest maybe we start with a phone call over there to that Alamosa office, tell them what we're doing. They will not fund 100% of the project, but they're looking at a max maybe of 25 grand. So if we come up with 25,000 on a grant, I really could see us going back to those homeowners and everybody else is going to have a buy-in and say, man, we need some help here.
Time limit on that truck.
As of 2 days ago, the gentleman said he'll hold. He really would like it to live here. He reduced the price to $32,000, and
Time to drive her on down.
Yeah, basically.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the conditions of a purchase by either through the grant, and that's a great idea, and that's where we were encouraging those subdivisions to go to, is to look into grant funding availability. Be understood, the purchase of this truck would have to be subject to it meeting Class A pumper specifications and pump testing.
Who would own the truck?
Oh, that's a good question.
That's one of the logistics to work out.
Because our insurance says we have to own the truck.
Mm-hmm. Which I would think that's reasonable.
And we would be the authorized, certified, tested, and educated firefighters to handle this.
Right. Which I understand that's also in the works. We've got some 3 or 4 interested individuals from that area. Let me take a question here real quick. Yes, ma'am.
As I understand from our last board meeting, there was discussion of the truck being purchased by the HOA, but then donated to Wetland and Fire.
Right, that title would be theirs.
I would be surprised if an HOA can qualify for a grant, be a grantee for that, but nonetheless, we can certainly
check into it.
Yes, sir.
But they can help pay for it.
Johnny, correct?
Yes. Speaking as a representative from Corner Verde, as well as Centennial Ranch, Timber Ridge, and Silver West Estates, because we all kind of come together in this. It's a little muddy, if you will, of trying to get these 4, and actually this is 4 homeowners association. There's also at least 39 independent homes in that area that would be covered within a 5-mile radius, which we haven't communicated with at all. But it gets a little mucky, if you will, about trying to raise funds within those 4 different homeowners associations to donate the truck. Now, I can tell you that as a resort, we could finance the truck. We could purchase the truck and finance the truck with the idea that we'd be paid back over 8 period of time. That's certainly doable. And I think I have the buy-in from the homeowners association to say that. The other ones.
Right.
I know from Corte Verde's board point, I'm a board member, we will do that. So the issue for us is trying to get this done.
Work out the mechanics.
Yes, and do it in an expeditious fashion so that we can get this truck before it gets away from us and get something established down there within the next few months.
Yeah,
Are there other buyers for it? Is there somebody
one in
putting?
North Carolina, but he's kind of out of the picture now. This guy kind of committed to us, and where I said
He wants to make it
get
work.
some direction.
Good.
Yeah, he wants it to work.
I spoke with Christy Doon, our DOLA regional manager for the Department of Local Affairs about this as well. And she said we need to be careful if you expend the money. It's not a reimbursement thing. If we're going to go after a grant, then we need to get that in place first, then go after the equipment. If we buy the equipment first, DOLA goes out the window for any possible support. I don't know about the Department of Agriculture's grant. I did not speak to them about that. But boy, I just want to throw $500 on the table and say, here, let's at least get some earnest money on the thing because
you guys are
I'm
willing
excited
to buy
about
it and lease it.
But yeah, that's the thing. What I'm saying, excuse me for rambling here on, but what I'm saying is if the homeowners association did purchase the truck, then our grant opportunities, for the most part, with at least with DOLA, go out the window. That's all I'm saying. Go ahead, sir.
And we just need to be careful on a lease that if it extends beyond a year with the buy, there may be some Tabor issues. Clint could address that better than I can. But
It would be a lease agreement like we have with Search and Rescue, which, what's it,
$1 a year?
Yeah, there's not really any Tabor issue involved in it.
So, yes, ma'am.
I thought Roger said that it had to be owned by the department.
According to their insurance.
Transferred over the truck.
Well, the lease we're talking about is leasing the building, I thought.
Yeah, we're talking about the leasing of the building.
Okay, yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chair, I would like to address a question you asked earlier and it wasn't answered pertaining to the security of that building or whether it needed to be walled off that bay. I mean, I don't have the answer to that question, but it does beg the question, who does have access to that building?
All the advisory committee members, of course. The question was, Dallas, if you didn't hear it, who has access to your building currently?
All the advisory board members. There are a few other people that are past board members that whether they've never showed up for it, but I think they probably still remember the codes. The 3 bay doors are coded for opening.
Outside code pad, right?
Yes.
And is your building keyed? I know we talked about keys at the last advisory committee meeting. Is it also coded or keyed?
No, it's keyed.
Okay. So they could access through a key through the main building into the bays?
Yes.
Transient pilots, can they get in?
No, transient pilots cannot. As far as keys go, only the present board members have keys.
Okay. So I don't know what the advisory committee would feel about that. I was thinking more about if it was necessary to wall that bay off and then trying to get personnel in there and get equipment loaded. I could see that being a little encumbering. To me personally, I think it would be nice to have it open so that you have some room to operate around that. I don't know. More of the mechanics that probably need to be hammered out as we
do an IGA that tells the truck belongs to firefighting only. Nobody else is taking it out the door and playing around with it.
Probably set it up and then figure out the mechanics of what we got to do.
Training will be a little tough, because right now we don't have anybody living in that area that belongs to the fire department and trained and ready to rock and roll.
But we do have people that are interested.
Right. So we were looking probably about a year to get them up to snuff to go into a fire.
Right. Meanwhile, you gotta jump in your truck. And
Meanwhile, everybody's coming from town to man that truck.
Right.
Just want everybody to know.
Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, the lease for the search and rescue building that Clint referred to, that also covers the liability. So, if the fire truck caught fire and burnt the building down, then that lease would address that. Who's responsible on the insurance side.
Better not.
And it happened.
Big embarrassing, but it'll happen.
Yes, sir. Mr. Prince.
Yeah, I would just like to say, I would hate to squander this, what appears to be the gift horse walking down for Christmas to us with this fabulous opportunity on this truck. I mean, everything is falling into place. I've yet to hear a single slightest negative to this. So I think the consensus, and I'm certainly not going to speak for them. I don't know if you need a motion for this, but the previous administration said absolutely, and I still feel that way. And I think whatever meetings we need to get with fire, with the homeowner association, with the airport, and with us, let's get it on the road and let's get moving on this.
Yeah, because we'd like to get an agreement between you guys and us and get rock and roll.
Dallas, I'm your guy now.
Yes, I know.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, relative to this is a comment that a fellow made to me yesterday who wishes to remain anonymous, that he would pay for the truck and carry it for 2 years with no financing. So that may add to this mix. And
sounds like Roger needs to talk to him.
Yeah, and then back to the grant thing, we could maybe buy it from him eventually.
Right, that's what he's offering.
Yeah. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Instead of buying it from the current owner, somebody else could buy it. That might still leave the grant window open.
In fact, you could do that.
We'll leave it open.
Purchase the truck, carry it, and expect to be paid back within 2 years, and no charges.
That'd be.
Have you seen the truck? Or you know anything?
I haven't seen the truck, no. Just pictures.
Is the truck at DIA now?
No, it's at a private residence in southeast Denver. One of our, John Decker and myself went up and viewed the truck about 2.5 weeks ago and spent a couple of hours with it, running through it. It's in perfect condition.
Bet his homeowners association's complaining.
No, actually not.
Oh, we like that in our yard.
All undercover.
Yeah.
When all this issue came up, the first thing is, this is a lifetime situation. It's not something we do today and stop tomorrow.
Right.
So what you got to think about on the board's aspect is, where do the fundings come from in the future to buy insurance, tires, maintenance, bunker gear, keep all the things that you don't see running? So my suggestion was a mill levy. We're going to have to change our mill levy. We have never raised our mill levy since 1981.
That's going to be my next question. I would assume, again, hammering out the details in an IGA, that the things you just mentioned, tires, bunker, all of that would fall under the fire department. And I would assume the fire department eventually will end up owning that vehicle. And so I agree with Commissioner Prince. It looks like it's a win-win thing here. I'm assuming that we do, if asked, you would recommend purchasing this truck, or at least obtaining it one way or the other. You're on board with the truck.
You need to come back to us with what the plan is. And Roger, you probably ought to, you're right on, but your vision's beyond just that pumper.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
probably another one out in Timbuktu and one in the big town of you.
Everybody has the same situations
Right.
they have out there in the road.
So if we're gonna do that, we ought to make it all inclusive.
Yeah. So right now, talking to, excuse me if I'm just rattling on,
No,
but I
it's
want to
okay.
rattle on anyway, I got the chair. So one of the situations, talking to Christy Doon, and I've talked to her many times as well as previous people in that position. For us to go after a grant, which they've been stabbing us in the back the last few times, they want the grantee to help themselves, bringing money to the table. So we're here sitting here at a 3.816 mill levy. We should be at a 10. We don't want to do that. We don't want to make our people in this county pay 10 mills for fire protection.
Right.
But we're going to be kind of forced to jump into maybe a 3 more here if we expand.
Well, let's fight that bridge when we come to it. Right now we're talking about a truck at the airport. Is it 4 subdivisions? That's what I understand, that it would serve plus
39 others.
Plus the airport.
Plus the airport, of course, and plus the homes that are not in subdivisions.
And
Let's
the
get some
developments in the
buy-in
future.
from them, and let's get this thing rocking and rolling as far as I'm concerned. So, but let's not talk about mill levies at this time.
That's
You gotta come
one
back
of the
with
big
vision
things.
and what we gotta look into.
And a matter of semantics, but I do want to go on the record to say that we're really not doing this for homeowner associations.
That's right.
It is a much broader blanket in that area down
That
there.
truck will go anywhere
That's
within the
exactly
district.
right.
It's for the county.
Yes, not
and,
their private truck.
And we had this discussion earlier at a meeting. Obviously, there's some action going on down there in Wolf Springs. They could be players to say, hey, well, we'll help you, I'll support you with that. Dave Watts being one of them, and obviously the Navajo tribe being the other. So if there's anything, at least from my perspective, if there's anything we can do as a board to encourage that request for additional funding to help out this cause, I think we would certainly entertain that.
Could we get a copy of that agreement with search and rescue so we kind of see how that's built?
Yeah, it's on the website. I can get you access to that.
Thank you.
And you
Kind
can
of a platform.
Thanks,
to build
Cindy.
an agreement off of. I guess that would be, my recommendation is let's start hammering out the details of an IGA,
Get
and
a hold
at
of
the
this guy.
same time concurrently work on trying to get the acquisition of this truck.
So what do we need, you need from us now to wrap this up?
I'd say just get this IGA between you and us under control. Who's doing what, who's doing, where is the truck actually coming
So who's got
from?
the lead on that? Who's gonna start? Cindy and you gonna come?
Cindy, no.
Just providing a
We're just providing a
template.
She's got.
Cindy, you gonna help me?
She's got a template.
Come on, Cindy.
Well, generally, I would prepare the IGA. I did the one
That'd be perfect.
with search and rescue, so I'd
Why don't you,
put it together.
Super. Work with these gentlemen and hammer that out. Good, thank you, appreciate it.
Come back to, can I get a copy of this?
You can have that. I brought
Oh, I
that
can have the
for
whole
you.
thing?
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Dave. Well done, guys. Thank
Later,
you. Appreciate
Gator.
your help.
Very well done.
Wild man?
I got it, see ya.
Public, thank for your comments and input on that as well.
And you need tires.
There goes the fire department's
There we go,
interest.
hope there's no whistles today.
I'll be coming to have you help me do that.
I'll send you it anyway, so you can.
So I can read it.
I see
Pass it around.
Thank you. Nice to
you
see you.
being here.
Nice to meet you. Terry Munson, the district clerk. Nice to meet you. Have a great day.
Kelly, would you like to proceed with your agenda item of the voting system agreement?
I can do that. So you guys should have got a copy of this in your packet. And just to bring the both of you up to date,
Kelly,
I did not get that.
I don't
did you ever send that?
think I got it.
I did. I emailed it to you, but you didn't get it.
I don't have a hard copy.
That same day we talked about it, when I put it on the agenda. I don't remember, that's been a couple weeks ago.
I don't recall seeing it.
Okay. Let's see, we're in our second year. So 2 years ago, the Secretary of State's office wanted the whole state to be on the same voting equipment. Before then, we were on probably 5 different systems. So, and they wanted everybody to do that, be switched over by 2020. I tried to switch over last year and the board didn't approve it. So the board this year approved it during the budget hearings. And so that's what you're signing today is the new IGA with Dominion is the company. And they are, if we sign by December 31st of this year, we receive back from the state, I believe it's $8,000, are part of our training. And so we get part of that money back. If we go past that, we won't get that money back. And right now, there's only 4 of us counties that are still left on the old system.
Okay, do you have the agreement with you today?
I do.
Okay. What's the group's pleasure?
The discussions previously have been, which of course will open again, that we should not, we're mandated by the state to do this. This is not something that we really have a pleasure on. We have an opportunity to save $8,000. We felt that's really something we have to do, and it's a no-brainer since we're mandated. It's not one of these we vote to or not to. Should we save money now or should we put it off and not save money? Is that correct, Kelly? Did I say it properly?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So why wasn't it approved the first time?
That board, which would have been Bob and Lynn and Kit, they felt that the Secretary of State's office could not mandate that every county be on the same system. And there were 2 counties, Douglas County and Jefferson County, that actually sued the Secretary of State's office for that reason, and both lost in court. And so,
So it can't move. You got to do it.
yeah, and it's good because it will put us all on the same system so that when we have an election and we have something that goes haywire with something here in our system, we can go to Chaffee County or Fremont County or Orfano County, a bordering county, and get help from them, and vice versa. And we're just all on the same page.
Or we
Just
can all
puts
be
us on the-
hacked together, too.
Well, those systems cannot be hacked because they are not connected to the internet.
Standalones. I would move we sign the IGA pertaining to the voting equipment.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded to have the Board of Commissioners sign the intergovernmental agreement on our voting equipment. Further discussion?
What's the total cost on it, Kelly? I know we have it in the budget, I just don't remember the number.
Yeah, and let me look here. I want to say it's 16 or 18 a year.
That's okay. It's under 20.
Under 20.
It's 19 to 20 a year. And it's, they have a cost of living increase yearly in that of,
What the heck does that buy?
2%.
What's this buy?
What's this?
What, every year we It costs that much to upgrade the system or to keep it current?
Yes, because when we
To
lease
maintain
it,
it?
we have the opportunity to either purchase this equipment or to lease it. When we lease it, they cover everything. So in the 2 years that they've had the equipment, the first year they ran into some problems with some equipment, so they had to replace some of it. It covers all of that.
So what does this do? Are we buying it or are we leasing it?
We're leasing it.
What's the cost to buy it? Do you remember?
I want to say it was right at about 60,000 to buy it, and then yearly we would pay
35.
18,000.
Almost.
yearly we would pay right at 6,800 a year.
So this is.
And your recommendation?
We've got to go with it by 2020. I've looked at the difference between purchasing it and leasing it. I'm a little torn with that, just because it would be a little better to purchase it, I think, but it would be it would be the difference of the county coming up with 60,000 compared to 18,000.
When the county wins the lottery next year or the year after, can we stop leasing and buy at that time if we have a windfall of some sort?
You know, that's a good question. And I could, we don't have to sign this until to get that reimbursement back, it's got to be signed by December 31st.
By the end of the year.
So I could pose that question to him, if we
Is this an
decide.
annual IGA?
No, this IGA, it's 8 years. So it's an 8-year commitment.
Yes, sir.
What's the life of the system in buying versus purchasing? What's the life of that system?
Well, that's the problem, is that the counties that purchased it have already had to replace some of that equipment and purchase it.
That's
And
what I
so
was wondering, yeah.
that's where a lease,
Back to the lease.
the
versus
majority
option.
of the counties have leased, especially the majority of the small counties, just because, like a big county, we don't have.
Do you have to
enough
pay it all at
money
once up front, 60 grand? Or can you spread it over the 2 years
You
it
have
takes
to
to implement it?
Pay it all up front.
Like when?
Probably, well, like with the lease, it's due in January for next year. So I would imagine as soon as you sign the agreement to purchase it, within 30 days, I would assume it would be due.
So my guess would be this is an 8-year agreement that we sign. So at the end of 8 years, then whoever is sitting in these seats can decide whether they want to continue or potentially purchase. I would call for the question that we sign the IGA the way it is. I agree with your assessment, and I think it just makes sense for us to do that.
Okay, question's been called for. All in favor of moving to an immediate vote, say yes.
I'm in fervor.
I'm in fervor too.
Fervor. Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Question passes. All in favor of signing the agreement, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. BOCC will sign the IGA for the voting system. Thank you, Ms. Kata.
Thank you.
No one opposed, Chris.
I'm sorry, any opposed? None. Thank you. Yeah, it's hard on a unanimous vote to remember to call for the
Do you remember
negative
who
vote.
made that motion? I didn't
I
write it
did.
down. Okay, I thought you did. Thank you.
Bill seconded it. We still need Miss Virginia whenever she's available. We've kind of been dancing around that agenda item.
We need to open the door, by the way.
Yeah, starting to get a little.
Open it up.
They're gone now.
Yeah.
Good.
Can't close.
From now on, we'll ask Mr. Byerly to escort him next door.
That's pretty good. We've tried that several times.
Yeah.
He's a chicken.
Well, it's loud.
I thought you were going to say.
No.
I thought you were going to
Echo.
say you didn't have any room next door. Hello, man.
Good morning. Good morning. My hero. How are you?
How are you? Good. Thank you. Sorry about the agenda hopping we've been doing this morning.
It's no biggie. I'm
Okay.
right here. Yeah, I know. I am going to request 100,000 transferred from lieu of tax to county general. It's going to be short at least 70,000 to pay the bills. and we're gonna have 30, and we'll probably end up having to do it next month also, because we're just not bringing in money to pay bills.
Say again, from where to where?
100,000 from lieu of tax to county general.
Payment in lieu of tax money transferred to the general fund.
Speak up, Virginia.
I'm sorry.
Either speak up or turn up.
I'll move that we transfer
I'll second it.
$100,000 from in lieu of account into the general account to pay bills.
Okay. Been moving and seconded to transfer $100,000 from PILT account to the general fund. Debate, discussion.
Yep.
Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
That was easy. Next
Money
time,
will be
transfer
transferred.
from Pilt to
You want me to go to jail?
I will listen very carefully to your next request. Thank you, ma'am. Sorry again about the agenda hopping. I believe our staff meeting is the next item on the agenda. I don't know how you want to go about that.
I'm gonna try this, something that Marilyn taught me. The staff meeting is occurring now.
Who'd you sound like at work?
Everybody.
Oh,
At once?
Yeah.
nice. You didn't get it because you were in here, so you have no idea what's going on.
Wow, thank you for telling me that, because I had no idea where I was today.
I'll have to go and check and make sure that it actually works.
See if technology works.
And I imagine this probably is a Donna Hobby question. Why cannot we stamp these with the chairman's signature?
They're coming like lemmings to the sea.
They
Did you call the zoning
asked on
office?
it, because I was thinking about that this morning. My signature goes on there automatically.
Yep.
Because Chuck and
I get it that it changes from time to time, but
You might.
I'll ask Brenda.
Maybe there's a reason to have a live by the side.
Yeah, it's like an intercom. She doesn't
Yeah,
just
that might
announce
be
it
pretty
over.
cool.
Fast, they'll split it up.
We might need more chairs.
Otherwise, it takes us longer.
Yeah.
Mrs. Gates,
Couple chairs, yeah.
Yes.
could you ask Mrs. Hobby if she could,
I'm gonna watch the door and keep somebody.
could you ask Mrs. Hobby if she could come in as well? If she has it or not?
She's on her way.
Sir, they come right now.
Oh, good.
There's one here, Donna.
The next item on the agenda is our staff meeting, an opportunity for, obviously, county staff to come in and enter into conversations with the commissioners about whatever topics they feel important. I have a question, at least to start out with, Mrs. Hobby. Is there a reason or rule why we cannot stamp the chair's signature on these?
There is, and luckily enough, we didn't have that in place because we had beat over at $6,000 this year between different, it needs to be only the chairman, and it's an overlay that costs $2,000. And so I would be on my third overlay right now. But
Per-
yeah, absolutely.
Per chairman, not per year, not, it's really per term, but
Always, usually every
nonetheless.
year, yeah, they change, and not always.
Depends on the
I mean,
chairman,
sometimes,
right.
but it could be $2,000 a year every year.
Yeah, so if the chair changes, the overlay would have to change as well.
But yeah,
And-
absolutely.
And as this, I know this calls for the chairman of the board of commissioners, is the vice chairman also?
Right, they just write, sometimes they write vice chairman or just V dash.
So we could split it.
Before or after the signature?
Yeah, share the misery.
Right. Before or after the signature, what would be appropriate?
Usually
His
they,
VC,
yeah, they just would split them in half and they would just multitask and talk and sign.
but I'm asking, would you want that VC note after his signature?
It's, I think,
For
does
it.
it say chairman?
It does say
And
chairman.
you would just write
put-
V and a dash.
Okay,
and
in
then
front of
it's-
it.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay. What's on the staff's mind these days? Of any staff members that are
Personnel
here?
policy.
Okay, come forward, please. And I'll tell you what I'd like to try. Would you like to speak to that? Or are you just
Sure.
throwing? Okay, so here's my request, because I certainly never felt comfortable sitting in that chair with my back to the audience. I'm wondering if we can slide the chair over by Kelly. If you'd like to speak to that, come forward, and then you're kind of speaking more to the whole group so that we can hear, because we don't have a microphone. Pardon me?
We usually don't come forward.
I know, but we're going to start today. Could somebody slide that chair over for me, please?
Hot seat.
It's not a hot seat. It's politeness for everybody in the room so that we can hear and at least make eye contact with somebody and you're not talking to people's backs.
And I can elbow Kelly.
That's right. Yes, ma'am.
Personnel policy was enacted, I believe, the 1st of July.
I believe it was June.
Something like that. And there's been a lot of issue of different treatment to different offices, different personnel, an unfairness in how it has placed a burden on a lot of people. And we just wanted to, I don't know if anybody else is willing to say anything, but we need it to be looked at.
Okay.
Can I?
If I may.
Go ahead.
Thank you for this frank discussion. No repercussions, nothing will happen, I promise, okay? So feel free to just speak to us. If the prior administration didn't do a good job, we'll go and fix it, okay? I'm going to tell you that right now. But we need to know what's going on. I've heard little dribs and drabs over the last month or two. Prior to that, I really hadn't heard anything, and I'm not sure why I hadn't. No one really complained to me, which is kind of unusual because I'm used to getting complained at. But at any rate, without complaining, tell us what needs to be fixed in your mind. If you don't mind.
Okay, yeah, before we go into the
Before you
specifics,
do
let's
that,
each at least
let me make a comment too.
converse a little.
Because I don't want to put them on the spot. What I was proposing to do, and the reason I brought it up in the last meeting, and we couldn't do it because formally we couldn't make the motion that I did until it was on the agenda. That's why it's on the agenda now. And so what I was going to propose with a new motion that would be appropriate was to do two things. One is I wanted, because I know it was an issue, is to go back to the hours that we had before. That was a big issue. And do a tiger team. And I would like to propose, if this turns into a motion, that I'd like to see Kelly run the tiger team and get the right department heads and people that have a vested interest in it. I'm not going to point fingers and say, you do it, and you do it. But let you all, because you all, from what you're saying, is right down the alley. It affects you all, and you all ought to have an input. And now,
not all.
But it depends. But it overlaps. And so I am a firm believer in you all having an input and owning it. See, then you have nobody to point a finger to. You don't point at Jay and say, God, why did you force that down my throat? There may be some good reasons that you all would like to force that down each other's throat, and then you buy into it. So what I was going to propose in a motion is that we do that. We set up a tiger team that actually does the transition back those hours. You can't just say, go do it, and then everybody's planning on coming in and picking up kids, whatever. And then come back to this board and do exactly what Jay asked. Point out what all those bones of contention are, get it on the table so that we can hear it, and then tell us how you propose to resolve those, or maybe they won't be. Maybe you're going to have to ask us for some guidance or something. But I don't want to sit here today and listen to a bunch of people complaining, because it's been over time, and we need the background as a board, a new board, and I'm including Jay in that new board as well. We're a team now, and we all are a team. So that's where I wanted to head with it, and that's why Tom moved it down to the bottom of the agenda to make sure you all would hear this. It's not anybody putting a personnel policy up for a motion and we're going to vote on it. It was a motion to get you all to work together and come back to us.
Thank you, sir. This scenario is exactly why I was excited to run for county commissioner, not to sign these stinking vouchers all over.
Well, wait a minute. Those vouchers are important. Don't alienate the team yet, Tom.
This is an opportunity for, to me, what not only government's about, but what being a family's about while we're trying to run our government. We can sit here and have these open, honest discussions, I can promise you, if I ever, as a Board of Commissioner, sense that somebody is being persecuted because they came forward and sat in that chair, somebody's head's going to roll. At least the attempt will be that while I'm on the board.
That chair's
And I know
not too
these
bad right
gentlemen-
now, is it?
No,
I know these gentlemen would agree with me 100%. This is healthy. Nobody should ever, and I almost wanted to ask Brenda if she would call again and ask, or at least say that the commissioners are requesting, if you are available and can, please come in here. Because this is the nuts and bolts of what running a county is about. It's not signing vouchers. It is talking to people, either employees or county-wide citizens. This is what's going to get us where we've all said we wanted to go, and that's moving forward in a healthy direction. So certainly, I applaud you for coming forward, voicing your concerns. You have to understand that eventually we're going to have to get this trimmed down to where we can function. We can't have 90 people on a committee. And I think that's where what Bill was talking about, that we form a committee if that's what we feel is necessary to review this personnel policy. I can tell you that I was not in favor of throwing out the entire personnel policy without looking at all of it.
That's right.
We're not going to chop the chicken's head off because he's lame. We need to address the
No,
problem.
he means throw the baby out with the bathwater.
I didn't really mean that.
No.
So, as the chairman of the BOCC, I want to thank you guys for being here. We need to look at our department heads. They need to be looking at their employees so that we can have some sense of organization and streamline as we go forward with
You know what?
this.
You may come back and not change much at all. I don't know. But you need a hard look at it, and everybody needs to know that it was looked at, and it wasn't just somebody jamming it down your
one of the
throat.
things that it does is it is treating everybody differently. Okay, we have a personnel policy that is supposed to cover all county employees. But guess
One
what?
size doesn't fit all.
You're not included. You don't have to follow it. You don't have to follow it. Oh, you do. You do. And that's where it's come to be unfriendly, unfamily-like. And it was told to me by one of the previous commissioners that wrote this policy that we are too much like a family around here. So,
We want a
to me,
world-class,
that felt
tight
like,
team. And
that felt like a slap in the face. Hours are one of the biggest complaints. This business had closed at 4 o'clock, to my knowledge, for at least 30 years. It has not benefited our office at all to be open that extra hour, but it has totally messed up
I hear you.
my daily business. But in that 4 months' time that we've been doing this, since August 1st, I'll tell you honestly, I have had one customer after 4 o'clock, and he's right there. He came with his lawyer hat on and asked a public trustee question. Jay Prince is the only customer I have had
Oh, jeez, it's gonna
from
be in
4
the
to 5.
headlines of the sentence.
It's okay.
You're doing business.
It's okay.
You're the only business customer I have
See,
had.
we hear you, but the bottom line is, you heard what we're saying. You've got an
Right.
opportunity to take a look
Right.
and make it help work together.
Right.
I really don't want to sit here and argue and say, well, the bad guys from the past did this or the good guys in the past did that.
I understand.
We'd like to have you get together and air those together. I bet you guys haven't sat together and
I
really.
think at this point, though, if we can do something about the hours now, we are getting into the point where we're holiday seasons, we're also the darkest part of the year. We are leaving, I come to the work in the dark and I go home in the dark. If we can get those hours changed now and work on some of the rest of it, I think it would go a long way to know that there's some change happening. The personnel policy says that there is You can make a change to it in there without notice. It's like on page 2.
Anything else, ma'am?
Lots else, but if we can't sit and air them all out,
That's
then
true,
we
that's
won't do
true.
it right
Thank you.
now.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Chair recognizes Mr. Prince.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In light of what was just said, I have spoken to many of the elected officials and many of the non-elected officials and asked the same question. What impact has staying open that extra hour meant? Do we really have it? Is it really serving the public? And that is really the key. And when this was first discussed, the thought was, well, that extra hour will allow additional people to come and take care of public services. What I have learned from our family, for another term, is that that really is not the fact. I mean, I hate to have been the only one in your department, but I've learned from the other departments that the impact has been so minimal that the impact has been so minimal on the community, but so burdensome on the staff. I would be inclined to say today, and I agree with you, let's look at the other areas, but that one issue that has caused so much consternation, I would be inclined today to approve going back to the normal hours immediately, next day to whatever you think. Calm down. This is not a political speech.
Sure
Okay.
sounds like
But-
one.
No, I'm the only one who can't get recalled again, okay? So, bottom line is, the impact on the public is so minimal, but the impact on our group has been so profound that I think rather than wait for this to come back, because I did do the same thing that you've done, and I know, Bill, you did the same thing I did. You went from person to person and said, how has it impacted you and how has it impacted the public? And it has not impacted the public significantly, but it has impacted these folks out here. And I'd be inclined to do that today and then get the rest of it on the table for the future.
Well, I agree with that. And my whole point was you can't just do it without impacting somebody, meaning that tell us the time that you want to do the hours. If it's tomorrow, that's fine, do it. But you guys tell us, because you got to tell your workforce, so they got to come to work at the right hour and they got to go home at the
I'd
right
like to
time.
see it change Monday. Same here.
You had asked kind of for the floor, would you like to continue?
Yes, I would.
Please
I'll tell
come
you how
forward.
this personnel has impacted not just my office, but the county. When the hours were changed, we were allowed to take flex time. For 10 plus years in my office, my customers are contractors. They're building contractors and they're septic contractors. They usually get a septic installed over the weekend. Monday morning, they want that septic inspected so they can cover it up so they can move to another job, or a snowstorm's coming. Can't happen. Because in order to make this hours fair, Elizabeth didn't come in until 1 o'clock on a Monday. Then I leave early on Friday, so there's 2 days. It was said in the personnel policy that that office, or any office, had to stay open to answer the phone. It had never been like that. I've always put a note in the door, said, gone on an inspection, be back in a couple hours. I'd say 11 o'clock, and I'd be back at 11 o'clock. Okay, so it seemed to me like no one knew what the zoning office was doing, but they had a problem with me leaving and going out and inspecting septic systems or houses. Everybody's trying to get their house loan. So I would like to go back and be able to say, hey, I can inspect your septic on Monday. I can inspect your septic on Friday. I can get you out of a construction loan into a home loan before the first of the year. And I guess and that's money that's coming into this county. And there was contractors willing to come in today and say, you are holding me up on a job because of what you've done in that zoning office.
Right, got it.
Thank you. So could we quantify the kind of hours we're talking about changing back to 8 to 4 with the 1 hour lunch. So that's a 7-hour work day. That's as it has been historically. Flex time really wouldn't be a need for that then, I'm assuming. I don't know that we have any office that is a single person department, correct?
Diane.
IT.
Well,
IT and
that's true.
it used to be
So let me ask you people, then you go to lunch at noon? Do you go to lunch at 1? Do you go to lunch whenever it's handy, available, or what's your...
Do you eat lunch?
Sometimes.
Depends on the day.
I mean, is it reasonable then?
Effective Monday, is that?
I'm thinking about the community. If we say, okay, we're going to be open from 8 to 4, we're changing the hours from 8 to 4, is noon to 1 a reasonable time under normal circumstances to expect some individual offices to be out of the office or not?
Even because there's only 2 of us in the office, I go at noon to 1, she goes from 1 to 2. It's open.
Right.
Unless,
So
of
you're,
course,
but I'm talking,
And the other people you were talking about got to leave at 4. Not saying they did leave at 4, but Brenda and Donna and the IT hours were different than ours.
And I don't think those offices are impacted by being closed at lunch because they're not customer driven.
Right.
yes, sir, go ahead.
Is there any department that feels that it really is beneficial to stay open to 5? I haven't heard any. I'm just wondering if anybody feels that it makes more sense to stay open to 5.
Well, I
That's
would,
pretty clear.
certainly you're welcome to share any more input.
Effective
yes,
when? That's my question.
I just want to say,
Way to go, JD.
well, no.
That guy's not afraid.
First of all, I don't want to paint the prior board as being that bad on this issue. They did come with the elected officials. We went over it. I think I had 10 or 12 concerns. They listened. I think they changed all but 1 or 2. The big one I had personally was the hours because my staff was not happy with it. And that one, we just lost them. Jay, you said you didn't hear from people. I think that's because I'm just speaking for myself. It's not because I was worried about repercussions or anything. It's because Donna Hood, A, wrote the policy, and B, was the courthouse liaison. So I went to her with my concerns.
And that was appropriate.
Not to you.
Thank you.
I don't know how many times I emailed her, I wrote her, Brenda sent us the thing, said if you have problems with the personnel policy before it's passed, now's the time. I wrote a very long, detailed email. Never heard a word back from her. It was on the hours, and of course it passed. My point was, you've got 4 o'clock, school gets out. People come, they pick up their kids, they go to the grocery store, they go home. They don't come to the courthouse after 4. They go before 4. The other problems was people that have kids in school that work here. It's hard for them if they're dropping them off, at a different time, at 9. What do they do between 8 and 9? They got to pick up their kids at 5. They get off at 5. The kids got 4. What do you do for that hour? How do you find daycare for now? And lots of us have volunteered at the school many times. And Mr. Flower, because you were there, a lot of the meetings start at 4 or 4:15 because the kids are there. Right. So if you're trying to coach, I was a Knowledge Bowl sponsor, I was a coach, I don't know what all. Even if your kid just has an award ceremony at 4 or 4:15, you don't get off till 5, you miss that. So I felt like being a community, the 4 o'clock was better because it helped with the school, and the schools kind of impact the community. Again, that fell on deaf ears, but I didn't bring it to you or Bob because I took it to Donna. So, but overall, I don't have, apparently other people have more heartburn with personnel policy than I do. The biggest issue for me was the hours. Okay. But I just want to say I did have 10 or 12 things, and most of them were listened to and adjusted if they were reasonable. I think part of the problem was the elected officials were consulted, none of the other department heads, but that's why your idea about bringing them in helps too.
Good. Thank you. Yes, sir.
If I could just make a comment. The last thing I want to do is throw my prior commissioners under the bus. The question that we had and we discussed was, will we be able to serve our constituency, the public, better by staying open an extra hour? And the question of school did come up. After school, you pick your kid up. If you need to come here, you can. Those kind of things. Not knowing what the outcome of that would be, I supported it thinking this was a good idea. It's going to support our constituency. More people will be able to come. We're open an extra hour. And we tried to do it with the flex time, which I recognize was a failure, but the idea was not to have anybody actually having to work an extra hour, but you'd come in later and stay later, or come in early, go home early. You know, unlike many people who go, that's my rule, I'm sticking to it, right, wrong, or indifferent, which I have never applied that rule. The experiment was a failure, obviously. I mean, just from the feedback that we're getting. So I'd like to say that the concept was great in terms of getting the public more opportunity to deal with the public offices. However, that is not the case. The question I brought up the last time we spoke about, I guess it was last week, have we given enough time for people to know that it's open an extra hour and maybe it would be used more? But you know what? The comment was just made, and appropriately so. For 30 years, it's been 4 o'clock. I don't remember anybody ever coming to me with a complaint saying, I wish you were open longer. You know, I heard everything else under the sun coming in. But that one I never heard. So, you know, I'd like to say I compliment the commissioners who brought it on, and I think we find that it's a failure, and we need to adjust and move forward. Yeah.
But I guess where I'm going is, I think you're right, when we don't need to throw out the whole thing. Maybe just, because a lot of it is fine, and a lot of it's very similar to what we had before. It didn't change much. You had added some language, and, you know, that kind of thing. But I think it's just little things that need tweaked. So,
well, and I think that's what we as a board would like to refer to a committee and get a general consensus of what those things are that need to be tweaked. Let's look at them, tweak them if that's the decision of the board, and then move forward. Certainly, I would expect if I was a county employee sitting in one of those chairs, thinking, man, I got to get back to my office. I can assure you the personnel policy is on the agenda as soon as we are finished with this staff meeting, and I would assume there is probably a motion forthcoming to that very thing concerning at least the hours today. But please try to understand that I will not function as a commissioner based on somebody getting me in the corner as an employee of the courthouse and complaining about somebody else. I mean, we have got to work as a team. Let's get this. If it's an issue, man, let's get it on the desk and let's talk about it as an issue. That's the healthy way to do it. And so in my opinion, as a commissioner, we need to continue to have our staff meetings. I would love to have an opportunity with every county employee to be able to sit in a room with the commissioners before or after work. Doesn't matter to me. I attended hundreds of meetings after I got done with my regular day. But it doesn't matter to me. But I think it's healthy for every employee of the community to be able to sit and listen and partake in these kind of discussions. And certainly if that can't happen, then we rely on the department heads to come forward and bring those concerns to us. I think that's a healthy way for us to proceed. Yes, sir.
I move that effective Monday, December 4th at 8 a.m., we rescind the policy in reference to hours only and leave the rest of the issues still to be discussed, that the courthouse will be open from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Okay, before I ask for a second, I would suggest that we amend the personnel policy instead of rescinding that part of it. Would you be comfortable with that?
I'm fine. I just
want to change
whatever
it.
the semantics
Want to
is.
change it.
Let's
Yeah,
get the hours right. And I really feel, since I was one of the commissioners that voted for it, it's really appropriate for me to be the one who makes this motion.
Good move. I'll second it.
And are you okay with me using the motion to amend previously adopted?
Can I make a suggestion? We're in discussion.
Not yet, but we're headed that way. It's been moved and seconded to amend the previously adopted personnel policy by striking the hours 8 to 5 and including the hours 8 to 4. Are you comfortable with that verbiage? Further discussion.
Are you, Clint?
Further discussion.
Chuck has something.
Just one thing,
Kelly, I thought that the clerk had to post a public notice before we changed hours. I thought we did when we went to 5. Wasn't that a requirement?
Not in the personnel.
No,
No.
not.
Policy, let me look real quick.
Oh, I got it here.
Oh, do you?
You can change the policy, but you can implement the hours.
Because I thought we did put a public notice out there.
We did put a
Counselors.
public
Yeah,
notice.
I don't know if that was required or if that was.
No, I think we just did it just to let everybody know.
Oh, okay, okay. I didn't know if it was.
And I think if nothing else, as a courtesy, we need to do that again, don't you, on the doors of the courthouse. Counselor?
I was just going to suggest, we're talking about Chapter 4. This is the Personnel Policy, Section 401, which defines work hours. Amending the personnel policy needs to be done, permanent amendments should be done by resolution. So I would suggest that this is a temporary amendment, and then get the committee together to consider any other changes and do a formal amendment of the entire policy at a later date, but for right now.
In the form of a resolution.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that we put the Tiger team into the same thing so we get that back so we can get a resolution.
But this is just a temporary amendment for right now.
I appreciate that, Clint. Thank you.
Cool. Other discussion?
I just want it done now.
Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. The hours have been amended. Thank you. Would you post a notice on appropriate doors saying the hours of the courthouse have been changed? I don't know whose responsibility that would be. Brenda?
And then we could, I don't know if that would be Brenda or what, because the cleaning crew used to come in.
Don't go anywhere yet.
Used to come in at 4, and because we were staying open later, they had to come in at 5. So we also
Brenda-
need to let them know, which I'm sure they will be happy about too, that they're not having to be in here so late at night here.
Yeah, good point. And Brenda, we good with that? Thank you, ma'am. Other items of discussion about in the staff meeting?
One thing I would like to bring up that's sort of separate is that our goal as a team, a board of commissioners here, part of the team, is to make this county government a world-class county government that is family-friendly, names and all that. You know, we get a good reputation across the state. There were boards that were brought up in this ICC meeting that moved and grooved. And so don't be surprised if you all find yourselves on other Tiger teams to do things. And if you come up with ideas, bring them up. Things that we could do better. I mean, just because that's the way we've been doing it, or because you think a commissioner might want to do it this way, or that the sheriff does, let's talk about it. Let's figure out how to make this a world-class Custer County government. Okay, that's all I had to say.
Yes, ma'am.
I have two things. And one of them, I don't know if you, I was going to bring up the Christmas party hours, so I don't know, since you guys are doing it, if you want to.
I don't care, it doesn't matter.
So-
I left a note for you,
Yeah,
because
that's
I
what I
didn't know
was
if you were
gonna-
gonna do
yeah.
it or not, but.
So in the past, we have always got together, the courthouse group, and had our Christmas party, and we do it during hours while we're open. But we close down for 2 hours. We close from 12 to 2. And it is going to be on the 21st, which is a Thursday. And we just have, in the past, always gotten permission from you guys to be able to close the doors from 12 to 2 for our holiday party.
So how did you get
Of which
permission?
you
Did
guys
somebody have to
decided.
move to do that, or is it an agreement, or what?
I don't think they ever did a motion. I think they just, I don't know. Clint, do we need a motion to do that?
I think it would be better to do it by
To do a
motion.
motion?
From 12 until 2 p.m.? 12 to 2, Kelly, is that right?
12 to 2, yes.
I'll move to do that for you, Kelly.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded to close the courthouse from 12 noon until 2 p.m. for staff Christmas party. Further discussion? Or
Do we get to serve the public that wanders in? Can they have a piece of cake?
Well,
Go ahead, sir.
we usually lock the door, but once in a while.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, once in a while. I was gonna say, that includes you guys, and Clint, and I think Clint's come in the past, haven't you?
I have.
Yeah, and I don't know if Jay has, I'm trying to remember, I don't know.
Not, but I will now.
But, well, but I guess that's what I'm saying, since you guys are relatively new, it includes the commissioners.
Jay didn't take office until January.
Oh, that's why, he didn't take office till
He didn't
January.
come.
So that's right, so that's why, so that's why.
It's your first
key
party
there would-
anyway.
The key there would be in the building at 5 till if you want.
Otherwise, we got
That's right.
to on a window to get in to get a piece
Well,
of
that
cake.
happens, we get people knocking, oh yeah, okay, we gotta let them in or something, but, so anyhow, that would be my only thing is that obviously you guys are invited too, and yeah, that's right, Jay wouldn't have been here last year, so, because I was thinking, I don't remember seeing him, but that's why. So since you're all new, this will be your first one, and you're welcome to attend. If you have other things going on, we understand. We never get 100% participation from from everybody, because people are gone or whatever, but.
It's great.
Oh, and the steak and lobster on you guys. So.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot about that.
I was going to defer that to the gentleman.
That takes a resolution.
And then I'm assuming then the courthouse will reopen at 2
Yes,
and then
yes.
remain there. Okay.
Yep.
Do you want to include the date in that?
Yes. I think that's
December 21st.
December
Fair.
21st
Yes.
from 12 to 2.
further discussion.
The only thing I would like to say is, can we post the party as soon as possible, just so people coming
know.
gets a feel?
Yeah, that's a good point, and we typically do that, we put it on both doors.
Great.
Yeah, if you want me to take after.
And I think Clint's gonna be the entertainment this year.
I never realized there was a question whether I could come. I just showed up.
No, that's what I'm saying, it's come, but I,
Okay.
Okay.
I'll
Any
be
further
entertained.
discussion? Points well taken. Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of closing the courthouse from 12 to 2. I will defer. Go ahead.
I thought we were moving on.
Oh, we're going to take this vote.
Say aye, say it.
On December 21st, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Courthouse will be closed from 12 to 2. Yes, sir.
I forgot.
Did it come back to you?
It'll come back.
All right.
So then I had one more thing.
Yes.
And this, we talked about this, or you kind of started to talk about this earlier, but I wanted to discuss it while everybody was here, is the maintenance person.
Yes.
In the past, we've always had a maintenance person around that swept the sidewalks and kept the lawn mowed and watered and did all that stuff. The maintenance person that we have now only comes in when we need him, but in the past, I've always taken great pride in how the courthouse looks, and like the back step, or whatever you want to call it, the back entrance. Dave, when he was maintenance person, he always kept that swept, and he always kept the mat straight, and he always, I mean, there's just so much stuff that's not being done. The fence over here has been sort of, I don't know if it fell down, if it got tore apart. Somebody at one point started tearing it apart, and there's 2 holes over here that finally Brenda went and put cones up over because people were almost stepping in the holes. And
Do we not have a maintenance guy anymore?
well, we do, but he only works up to 15 hours a week. That person was supposed to take over the scale house, which my office has been running since Dave left in March or whenever that was, and the billing of it and all that, and he's not here to. My office is still doing it, so I think that you guys just need to look at that again, having a maintenance person, so that when we do need something, we don't have to call, or we let Brenda know, and then Brenda lets him know, and then when he gets a chance to come in and do it, he comes in and does it. But it's nice, I mean, when there's a snowstorm, and there's several times a day, sometimes during snow, that the sidewalk has to be swept off, and the de-icer and all of that, and I don't know, does anybody?
I would like to add to that.
Agreed.
I think we need to take it back to when Dave was in and have the maintenance and the cleaning all in one area, one person. I have done some research, and Dave was going to be making, he was $28,398. As of today, just for cleaning and maintenance together, $17,290. I should wear my glasses. $56.
A lot of
But then it's been plus there's another $27.90 that hasn't gone out yet. That is separate maintenance and separate cleaning.
And that's year to date.
I think that really needs to be looked at. You need to put that back together where we have that person here during the day.
I don't think that's year to date, that's since Dave left.
That's just it. And not even, a couple of months.
All right. We back up a little bit. Dave who, number one?
Dave Post.
Thank you.
He was our
And when did he leave?
In May.
In May. So from May until now. Thank you, ma'am.
But
Yes,
they
sir.
didn't.
Sorry.
So it's costing us more and we're not getting enough done.
That's that bottom line, yes.
Yes, sir.
Just to kind of give you an overall, traditionally, there's been one person hired to do courthouse maintenance. They run the scale, they water the grass, they do all the mowing, so they do all the summer and winter chores. When we have court, they have all the sidewalks plowed, and as Kelly said, sometimes the sidewalks need shoveled 2 or 3 times a day. And we've had one person do that, the cleaning and get all those done. And so as they're here during the day and they walk around and they see a bulb burn out, they replace it. As it stands now, we see a bulb burn out, we got to call the maintenance guy. I've met him one time, I don't even know when he started. He's also the one that started to repair the fence, but we still have holes down there, the fence is falling down.
So we
So
put that on the
we
agenda.
stretched that out into 3 positions now. We have a guy that comes in, our lawnmower guy doesn't water the grass, he comes in and mows when it needs mowed. This summer, we had weeds out the back of the building on the east side that it looked like an abandoned building.
Did look like an abandoned building.
Okay, Mr. Trent, go ahead.
So one person can do all that if it's organized right.
Okay.
If I may, being as of last week, the HR person, can I meet with Ms. Hobby and let's look at the contract we have with the cleaning service we have now to find out what the status of that is. And let me meet with her and let's look at, because I agree. I mean, it's crazy. We're spending way more money for much less service. This is not a good plan. Let me meet with Ms. Hobby. We'll look at the job descriptions again. We can send them out to both of you to look at also if you like. And let's work towards, hopefully we can find a person.
Mr. Carpenter's looking for a job.
Yeah, we know a guy that needs a buck.
Point well taken. Mrs. Holly.
And that's a great idea, that we can get it posted and get the replacement. But I would just like to, if we could find something better for the scale.
Okay.
I mean, it's just, yeah, like self-service or, I don't know, something. And not that I have a plan or a solution, but that we could maybe think that through a little bit.
Well, in the past, I pulled up on that scale, came and got, you know the combination, you go in there, you serve yourself, and you put a voucher in the thing, and you're off.
Right.
What's
Well,
different now? What's maintaining the scale mean? What's he do?
And Kelly can answer to that.
And you know, I don't have a problem with my office running out and weighing somebody once in a while. And a lot of times we don't have to weigh a lot of people because most of the trucks that come through there, they do their own. You know, they go in, they fill their ticket out, and then they get billed at the end of the month. And the billing, I've been struggling with because I just don't have enough time. So Brenda has actually helped me out with that. And maybe that's something that she can do. I think in the past, at one point, there was a lot of people that had the combination, and they would just go in and look at the weight, and they weren't paying the fees.
They weren't doing it.
Yeah. So that's where we back up.
That's why I think Jay's got the right idea to get it.
Is that
Figure out
illegal? Aren't you supposed to be certified to do that way for it to be legal?
Well, it depends on the person. If they don't need a certified weight, then it doesn't have to be certified. But if they do, then it should be a certified person.
If you're
I
hauling a load
am
of-
certified.
Yeah, you're
There's not
hauling
very
a load of
many of
hay or
them,
cattle out of here worth thousands and thousands of dollars. I'm not sure the buyers of those products would be real comfortable knowing that you trotted in on the scale and weighed yourself.
Hand-wrote your own ticket.
Exactly. So,
Not good.
great conversation. I
Part of
always
being
thought
world
about
class.
that too. I remember in times past where we did go to Kelly's office, but also it seemed to me as a citizen that whoever was doing that kind of hung out there and then went and done other stuff too. Instead of hanging out in the courthouse on their downtime, they could hang out as a scale master, a weigh master, and I would think it would be cleaning, maintenance, weigh master. One person, I would think, could handle all of that, Mrs. Hobby.
Well, and the reason I would like it addressed is ordinarily, it makes it be that our scale person is on call. And so we can't ever get that. It is the worst,
Can't do
hardest
that.
job to fill.
Except the last board decided that we just weren't gonna weigh after hours.
And so that we make sure that we've addressed
hard.
that, because that is really hard
It is
to
hard.
somebody.
You gotta have somebody on call regardless.
That just makes the job.
Bobby and I get together and come up with a recommendation. Is that acceptable?
I certainly would agree with
And Donna,
that.
do you remember, I mean, I know
All
that
the jobs
the
together,
automatic
we have to
weight
hire two
thing
to do.
works for like 6 months and then
Got
quit
hit by
working.
lightning.
Is that what? Because maybe that's something to look at again too, is that people just, they come up and they pay their thing and they weigh and
For some
nobody
reason,
has
I
to worry
thought
about it.
someone had said that it was not a legal weight, that you couldn't, with it on the wall, that you couldn't check to make sure it was calibrated.
Zeroed out.
I'm not sure, I just remember vaguely.
That's true. That's
that-
true.
That there was something with that, because it was a great concept until the lightning
Well, when it
hit.
got destroyed, replacing the cost was more than the income off the scale, and it wasn't worth the money to.
I brought up, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, when we were having a similar discussion about trying to find somebody. Why is the county in the scale business anyhow? Most counties aren't. It's a private thing that does it. And why are we even doing it? Does it pay for itself? And I think the discussion was, no, it really doesn't pay for itself, but there's no one else out there willing to do it.
Yeah, we do have another certified public scale in the county,
Yeah.
so it wouldn't be the end of the world.
Yeah, see, at that point, I think we were the only one, and it was like they've tried to get people to take it over, no one wanted to do it, it's just not worth the time and hassle, you don't make enough money on it.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of the problem is, yeah, because a rancher wants to get weighed at 6 in the morning and another one at 8 at night, and it's hard to find somebody to run those hours. So I don't know what the answer is, maybe the
Yeah.
automated if you can do
Guys
it,
can
I don't
think
know.
about
But
it.
I guess my point is, it's been kicked around before, and it's always hard because it's just something the county does as a service more than anything.
Well, yeah, and it's like a lot of services. I mean, if we're gonna offer it, I'm not sure that this random on-call thing, I mean, I understand the ranching community as well as anybody
Right,
does, but I
yeah.
also understand if the county says the scale's gonna be open from 8 to 4,
Figure
you're
out
welcome
how
to
to
use
get
it, and here's our fee schedule, and that's the end of the discussion, then that's pretty cut and dry. If they want to weigh at 6, they'll have to go somewhere else. That's all there is to
See if
that.
Cypher
If that's
will
the route we decided to go. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me as a county to be coming in here at 6 o'clock to weigh hay trucks. As much as I hate to say that, hurts me to say that a little bit, but you know, business is business as well. So I feel like it's a general consensus of the board to refer this item of business to Mr. Prince and Mrs. Hobby to pursue that, maybe come back with a position announcement or at least a position description of combining a lot of these little tasks and jobs. Let's try to get that under one umbrella. And then I'm assuming we
Figure out how
get
that-
a vacancy announcement put together and we'll move forward.
Figure out what we do with the current crew that's doing
Well,
things.
that's my concern. Do we have a contract with
Yeah,
the
right.
current crew?
That
And I
you
don't
said
know
you
the
were
answer
gonna-
to
Doesn't
these.
sound
I'm gonna
like it.
find
Yeah.
Well,
out.
any contract would have to be renewed
Right.
anyway, so.
Right,
Right.
yeah.
And
Yes.
I've been in contact with Mackenzie Huffman, and I don't think any contract was ever signed. It was just, she gave us quotes and we accepted it.
Okay.
So some
So if nothing else, we could
And there
probably,
is no contract with the maintenance guy.
Okay.
It's
We
just
could-
contract labor.
we could probably move forward with the assumption at least that that's a month-to-month
Right.
agreement with whoever's providing the cleaning and the part-time. Okay, good. Other items of discussion? Yes, ma'am.
We're talking about cleaning. When you come in the morning and come down that hall, it just reeks coming down that hall.
Okay.
And I'm thinking it's from the basement. I've gone down there to investigate.
Reeks like it stinks.
It stinks, it is. And even Cindy the other day stopped by and she said, do you notice?
Even Cindy noticed it?
Yeah.
She said, do you notice the smell? And I said, yes. When we first come in the morning, it stinks.
Stink like what? Does it stink like
Is it a sewer smell? or
sulfur
musty?
smell or what?
No, it's musty. It's like
I think that Dave, when Dave was still doing the maintenance, Dave Post, he actually, there's a dry sink down there, that he would dump his mop bucket in, and it would
Block
fill
the
trap.
smell.
It would fill the trap. The new cleaning crew has not used that down there
Well,
or
there you go.
done anything, so I think it's probably just a dry trap.
I don't
But-
think that sink ever got.
That stink down there is not finished,
Yeah,
and somebody
nobody ever
really ought to
finished it.
look at that,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
that is a giant mess down there. And we've got dirt, I mean, there was the sink went away, now we have one on the floor, and they had to cut it out, and there's dirt, there's a sink, it's not hooked up, I don't
They never
understand the
came back
purpose
to
of it.
fix it.
No,
So they
it's
never
part of the
finished the
maintenance.
job.
Rest assured, at my earliest convenience, after I go to the bathroom, I will go downstairs and
You're
look.
gonna go down and check that out, because that is quite the thing down there.
Like the
one in the annex.
Okay, yes, sir.
I was just gonna say, I'm pretty familiar with the basement, so I'll meet
Okay.
you later.
Thank you.
Are you at bottom
yeah.
feeder?
They want to qualify
And Jackie brings up a good,
What is he doing in the basement?
Jackie brings up a good point as well. That mop sink over in the annex is, man, it is a safety hazard.
trip
Yeah,
and
it's in
fall
the
waiting to
wrong
happen.
spot. It's certainly a trip hazard, and either we need to do something there, or I don't know, but that needs to be looked into as well. That's not a good situation for using as a meeting room. Yeah, point well taken. Thank you, ma'am. We will look into that as well as this odor. I would have a tendency to agree if it's not getting used right or often enough, the track's probably evaporating and we're getting sewer gases back up in
And the
there.
other thing is that Rhonda mentioned when her and Dave were cleaning is that about once a month they used to dump something down the bathroom drains
Yeah.
to clean that.
There are
And maybe
times
that's
those-
not being done.
There are times those bathroom drains are really bad.
I wanted to ask a question along the cleaning thing. As regular occupants of the courthouse, have you been satisfied with the cleanliness and the repairs and maintenance, or?
I think in our office, we have seen they come in and they wipe down the counter. Usually don't vacuum, maybe wipe down the door. I don't know what they're getting paid for that.
Okay.
That's
And they
really-
dump my
Sounds
trash.
like too
She
much
dumps
to
her
me.
own.
Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking, being a public office, I mean, I would think we would be regularly sanitizing counters, doors, doorknobs, drinking fountains. I just don't know what's been going on, bathrooms, certainly. So, again, we've deferred to, or referred this to those guys, and I know I have confidence that they will do this. Yes, sir.
Well, you mentioned that this is a public building, and I had a lot of public come and tell me that this summer they were really disappointed in the condition of the lawn. I know Jackie tried to do some of it, and now the fancy schmancy sheriff's office has a sprinkler system.
Darn sheriffs.
So I don't know financially if we could look at a sprinkler system.
We have one, don't we?
Here?
No, they're still sprinkling with hoses.
Just garden hoses, right?
That's why it looks so bad, because when Dave left, we had nobody to water the lawn.
So right now, the sheriff's office kind of one up just on the lawn. Yeah, we're going to take care of that.
Their lawn always looks great.
True.
Well, we have help over there that, whether they.
Yeah, they got a little labor pool, but yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Because we want ours to look better.
I'm assuming
Because then I have to have somebody supervise them, and I don't have the staff to supervise them. It's the same reason we don't make them pick up trash on the side of the road. I would love to do that, but it's not the staff to do it.
And the maintenance person used to do it.
Yes, we just need a full-time maintenance person.
Yeah.
I'm assuming the High Altitude Garden Club will continue to do their thing out front.
They've been doing that, yeah.
In fact, they were irritated because of
Yeah, they were complaining about the condition of the lawn, so.
Over time, I've heard a lot of positive comments about that. But yeah, your points are well taken, clearly heard. And this, again, will fall back under the efforts here to address another, at least personnel position.
And there's a job description ready. I mean,
Is there? Okay.
yeah,
So you guys, if you at some point feel comfortable bringing that back to the board, we can move
I just
forward
want
with
to
that.
get rid of the on-call scale. That makes it a lot
Okay.
easier, so.
And I just want to say about the cleaning, you know, it used to be we had people that, they were the cleaning crew, well, person or one or two, but they would just come in and clean, and then when we got, Dave quit and we got the new ones, we had to fill out a form as to when we wanted our office cleaned. Well, I want my trash dumped every day. They may not have to vacuum every day. That's
Right.
going to depend on traffic and stuff,
Sure.
you know? And so there are days, you know, it ended up that Tuesday was my day for vacuuming. Well, there was times they came in and fixed this pipe that goes outside, which is in my office, made this big tremendous, you know, horrible mess. So, because it's not our time to be,
Sorry.
we're getting the, you know, we're getting the vacuum cleaner out and we're cleaning it. So it's stuff like that. Stuff
Okay.
needs to be looked at.
Absolutely.
And if we don't need a vacuum, don't vacuum. But if
Right.
we do,
Sure.
you know.
Common sense.
Yeah.
That's
Instead
common
of this
sense.
is your day and we're not
Right.
gonna do it any other day.
Yeah,
you know.
Good. Okay. Good point. Good point.
Can I go back to just one item
Yes.
that we kind of glossed over?
'Cause
The team that's going to work on
Thank you.
the personnel manual.
Just where I was headed.
I'm sorry. You,
No,
well,
go
can you
ahead.
Go for
No,
it.
no.
I was just thinking, could we kind of shore that up a little bit? I know you asked Kelly.
To put together.
How will we? Who will be on it? And how would you want to do that?
And that's what I've suggested is that Kelly be the chairman of this Tiger team, and
Right.
that she puts together the team,
Okay.
the right people, not let us decide who the right people are.
Sounds good to me.
I can tell you how we did it the time before, not this time, but the time before, they had the department heads all get together, and there was a commissioner that sat on the board too, and, or the committee, and then we would discuss it, and we met, I don't know how many times, and then we could go back to our employees and ask them and tell them, this is what's, you know, is being said, what do you think of this? And that's how we did it before, but I'm
I
sorry.
don't want
Yeah,
a commissioner
right.
on it, but I think if you guys decide. If you want to do it with just the heads, that's fine, but I would suggest reaching in and getting somebody that
fine.
impacted and get them on the board.
I think they need some of the.
Get some of everybody in there.
The problem was, we were doing it during the day, so it was hard to pull the employees in there. I mean, you know, if I couldn't go, somebody else went
Well, you
for
could
me or
pick it, you
something.
could figure
How about a
out.
working lunch?
Or something like that.
Yeah, lunch.
Let's
or
let you guys decide that.
Okay.
That's the best
You know,
way. Kelly, it's your.
If
Okay.
It's your
things are
your dog.
in the normal world, if things are important enough to people, they'll meet whenever you ask them to meet. If that's after work, so be it. If it's at lunch, so be it. Whatever. If it's the general consensus of the chair of the board to appoint Kelly as the chair of that committee and let her function, so be that.
I agree. What was the last one? We didn't put you in the motion before, so that we can either do a motion or we can.
I certainly can appoint committee chairs and committees,
That's
but
right.
at this
So
point,
let's-
in deference to what you were saying, I would appoint, the chair would appoint Kelly as the committee of the Personnel Policy Committee and let you fill that committee as you deem necessary. Is that reasonable with the staff of the courthouse?
Okay.
So be it. Thank you. So Personnel Policy Committee is thus established with Kelly as the chair. Other items? Staffers, honorable staff members. Oh, you were having a little girl moment there. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt that.
I couldn't find my glasses.
Oh, yeah. Other things that concern the staff or otherwise?
I think they're just all relieved
I think
to
so,
hear
too.
from you guys.
Good.
And
I'm
listen.
I'm compelled to talk to our gentleman sitting outside that most of you do not know he's out there, Mr. Ippolito. Are we making progress for transition in the IT area?
Well, we've got interviews scheduled for a week from today, so I think that's the next step.
Okay, good. Everything else smooth and going along okay?
Yeah.
Good.
And depend on, if we can find somebody and then when they can start too, as to,
Okay.
Do Tom and I need to turn any, I've got Bob's old equipment, the radio, the computer, some keys. Do I need to turn those in so he can reissue them to me?
If you want me to clean it all up and change the names and send
Probably
the
shouldn't.
email and all that kind of stuff, I'll be happy to.
And Brenda said, or somebody said they'd tell me what the keys go to.
I can help you with that, because I had a question about that, but it doesn't have to be in this meeting.
Okay. May I ask one more question real quick? And where are you officed out of? Where do you hang out? In the zone? Okay.
In between zoning and HR.
Same closet and
That's right. Go ahead, Mr. Prince, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna, and maybe it's not even appropriate to bring up here, but I was thinking probably appropriate to change the locks on the commissioner's doors again. We haven't done that since last time we had new commissioners, and I was just thinking that might be a smart thing to do.
You're talking about this room?
Yeah, those two doors right there. I just meant, it's really not a, I mean, it's
No,
probably not
I'm
an appropriate
glad you
time
brought
to
it up. Go
discuss
ahead.
it.
Yeah.
Well, there's only a handful of keys for the doors of the commissioner room. Previous commissioners had one. I'm sure I would like to think.
Probably have one of them
Probably
now,
has
right?
one.
Kid had one.
I don't have any keys to Donna's keys, that's what I'm talking to you about. So there should be a key to the building and a key to the commissioner room for each of you.
So you got the old keys back?
Donna Hood is coming in today at
Today?
3:30 to drop off.
Okay, so,
So I
and
will,
Brenda and I have a list of the keys issued for the courthouse, and I keep a running list of the additional keys issued.
That's not an issue, I don't have.
And the locks were just changed. And it's fairly expensive to change it.
So I think we'll be okay.
My recommendation is, there's only the outgoing commissioners that have keys to this, and to me, it's not a concern.
Okay.
I would just throw this out to the staff and Mr. Prince, Counselor. Access to the courthouse by the commissioners after courthouse hours. Is that going to be an issue if we arrange to meet somebody here, 5 o'clock, 5:30, whatever, there's a light on, people are going to drive down the street and go, what's going on in that courthouse? Have you dealt with any of that? Yes, sir, Mr. Hall.
It's never been an issue in the
Okay.
past. There's a lot of after-hours things that happen here, the 4-H meetings.
Sure.
They do the public speaking is in the courtroom. We have had the political parties meet in the courtroom after hours, and it's never been a problem.
Okay.
And each of you should or will have a key to the building, so that key will get you in either the west or east entrance.
Okay.
It's never been an issue before.
How much use is going on, or how much activity is going on down in the basement these days?
Doesn't sound like a lot.
Little or none.
Okay.
One of the reasons
It's not accessible.
are
This door's
the
locked.
county insurance.
Yeah, the insurance.
Has several years ago, probably 8 years ago, maybe 7, recommended that we no longer have meetings down there. 4-H used to meet down there
Right.
regular. Once we acquired the building across the street, that was made available for those extracurricular meetings. Couple of reasons is it's not handicap accessible, and there's no bathroom facilities, and exits are rather limited.
the auditors use them.
We've certainly conducted more than one employee interview down there when we were seeking extension agents. Yes, ma'am.
Our department uses that building, uses that room because we have no place else to go.
Privacy.
We are mandated once we have kids in foster care to have what's called family engagement meetings and permanency roundtables. And at one time, we used this room, we no longer can do that. So we have to have access to a phone, and so we have no place else to go. Sometimes we have 7 or 8 people, so we can't put them in my office, so we use that room.
Is there a phone down there?
There is a phone down there. It is not handicap accessible, which is an issue. We have one family that we're working with that they cannot come downstairs. We have worked it out with Sol Vista. They have a room that we used one time. We've used a couple times with that family because they're working with that family too. But yeah, So we do use them there.
Okay.
We're probably the only office in this courthouse that uses it on a regular basis for stuff like that.
We use it during elections too.
Yeah.
Okay. But certainly not like it was 10 years ago.
Not for public
Yeah,
gatherings.
okay.
Yeah, that was, like as Mike said, the insurance people were real. There's the fire exit, there really isn't one. I mean, it's
That'd
so
be pretty good.
the insurance company kind of said, we don't care if you use it for your office, but we really don't want to have public meetings.
It's okay for you to die, but not the public.
Pretty much, yeah.
And you said you no longer can use this room
Right.
because we now have an office in this room as
Right.
well? Okay.
Because, yeah, it is a confidential meeting.
Right.
And before Brenda was in here, we would just make sure we could schedule it when nobody, was using this room, and we had a phone and it was big enough to handle that. But yeah, we lost that, so we've got no place else to do it.
That's part of our space problem.
It
Yes,
is.
it is.
Yeah, it's a
That's
huge-
why we need
It's a
a
huge
new
issue.
justice center.
it's a
Yep.
huge-
And I'm assuming, Miss Brenda, that if and when it's appropriate or we think it's going to be necessary, you are the person that schedules to move commissioner business into the courtroom, or how's that usually handled?
Well, if you think that you're gonna have a large crowd, then we'll schedule that with the court people and make sure that,
And you are the normal contact person for that, that's what I'm getting at?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to revisit a line item on the vouchers this morning. Bear with me for a second. Laptops. I can't quote it obviously because I can't get my hand on that. We had some contract labor this year from the school. Yeah, that's my agenda. Thank you. I don't remember the amount. Can you speak to that?
The county has gone in conjunction with the school for the school nurse. So Friday, she's at the clinic in the health department.
Okay. Thank you. Other items for the staff? I got a question. I mean, I would love to see, and I know everybody's got a job to do, but I would love to see us have staff meetings on a regular basis, more than once a quarter, to be honest with you. And do you feel like if that happens, we can get some of your people in here? Not that you can't represent them, I'm not getting at that, but
Tried.
I don't know.
I think we tried it in the past and it got so there wasn't that much to bring
Yeah,
up.
once
And that's why we went.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
We
that's
we
fine.
did have a monthly at first, and then we went to quarterly. But I think that if we needed something, I mean, if we thought
Call a
something-
special one
we
anytime you
could,
want.
we could just ask Brenda to put it on the agenda, and we could just do
That's
it
fine.
that way.
Yeah.
And I think like our staff members, if I've told them, my staff members, I think you
I
guys
told
probably
mine.
have, if you have something that you want to discuss, then come into the meeting. And I think that they have that opportunity to come in, they just,
Yeah, I did that today. I
Me
said,
too.
we're having it, if any of you want to come down.
yeah.
I'll arrange to have it watched, I'll stay up an hour.
Good.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, well, good. Well, please communicate that, continue to communicate that with them, and I just would really like for people to feel like they can come in here and say, you know what, I got a serious issue. And we can have that discussion. Certainly if they can send it through their department heads, that's fine too, but as individuals, I would like for them to feel like they can do that. Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
Recently, we had an incident where I felt it necessary to press the panic button in my office, and it didn't work. Mike has gone through and found out that the batteries or something were dead in everybody's panic button. We don't know potentially how long that could have been, but
Yeah.
I would like to possibly implement some kind of test that we as employees know they're getting checked, we hear them being buzzed, that we know if we have need to push that button, that we know somebody's gonna show up.
Good point.
Well, and we're scheduled to have a security meeting. That certainly has been noted prior to today by the commissioners. And I agree that we need to have some kind of a regular monitoring program in place. They don't work. No point in having them.
Yeah.
So I'll speak to that unless Mike wants. So they're tested quarterly.
Okay.
And so between the last check and then when Suzanne pushed the button, the battery went dead in there. The batteries that we had purchased and were in there were supposed to be guaranteed for 5 years. Well, it turns out that that was false advertising. They were only good for 3 years. And so they were beyond their lifespan, unbeknownst to us. We ordered new batteries. Those quarterly checks continue. It's documented. We submit that record to court security to the state as part of our grant. That Mike does that on a quarterly basis. It happens. It has been happening. Mike, how long?
7 years.
Since their inception, it happened. And so it was something that occurred that shouldn't have. You know, you don't ever want
Are they
us
all
to go to
independent?
use a system.
They're not on. They're not wired to the
No,
power.
they're all
That batteries aren't
yeah,
back
they're
up.
standalone.
They're standalone systems.
They work off a radio frequency that comes to all of our radios.
There's one right there, isn't there?
Yeah. And so, I mean, it's unfortunate that it happened, and fortunately, I mean, nothing more serious came of it. I mean, thankfully. And so it's been addressed, it's been fixed.
And once one of those buttons are pushed, where does that signal go to? Your office?
Yeah, so it transmits through an 800 megahertz signal, and all of us get the alert on our radios. Anybody?
Dispatch gets it, anybody that's got a radio.
So it's a tone alert?
Yes.
No,
How does
it's
it turn
actually-
off?
It's actually a tone with a verbal direction.
Oh,
It tells us where
It'll say
the
alarm,
Wow.
treasurer's office, or alarm, judge's bench.
Mhm.
So it gives a specific location.
Okay. Well, your question I thought was a good one, Bill. Would you ask it again?
Oh, how do you turn it off?
You don't?
Oh, you don't, yeah.
So
It just activates when you depress it.
and then it times out.
It turns itself off.
It repeats the message twice. So anybody monitoring is going to hear that message twice.
Okay.
And then if you depress it again, the same procedure will repeat.
And it's one of the challenges that you face because we're trying to put a newer technology into an older building that wasn't wired for it, and so it's just one of those challenges that comes.
So you have a protocol. Once you hear it, you'll go.
Yes.
Somebody responds.
Absolutely.
We had somebody at the sheriff's office come in one day and said, "What's going on?" We're going, "Nothing." And they said, "The buzzer rang." And we're like, "Oh, we didn't push the buzzer." And then here come another one over and we're going, "We didn't push the button." And they said, "Well, it said, social services." And we're going, "We did not push the button." So I don't know if that was Susie trying to push the button or something. I don't know.
She's wired to the wrong office.
You know, we're going, "Oh, no."
Well-
After looking around, there's absolutely nobody in there. Happened to be nobody in there but us at that time, and they're just going, "What's going on?" Nothing.
In this case, probably a better false alarm than
Well, hey, we
failure
always,
to respond. So, yes, ma'am.
No, we don't know. We thought it was weird. But yeah,
Mrs.
interesting.
Flower?
My question would be, what is the backup to this system in the event that it doesn't work?
911. 911.
You got a telephone.
Yeah, telephone.
And you can bring your gun to the county.
Okay. I had another question for Mr. Byerly, kind of a staff thing, I guess. Where are we at with the window through your opening in your reception area? I know that was discussed. I know the bulletproof glass was down the tube because of budgeting.
Right.
Where's that stand?
So after the new year and once our budget's been approved and we move into the new year, we're going to just find money and we're going to purchase. It won't be. I don't want to advertise this out. So if you could please stay in there. It's not going to be full-fledged bulletproof glass like is in the clerk's office here. Or I'm sorry, not the clerk's office, the court's office here. It's not going to be to that magnitude because that's about an $8,000 expense. We're going to go with something similar to what Colorado State Patrol uses at their offices. It's going to be $1,300, $1,400. We're going to make it work.
Okay. Is it going to be clear to the ceiling?
So have you been in there and saw the new opening?
I did. Didn't pay a lot of attention to
The
it.
recording's still on.
Yeah, your recording
So
is
you're
still on.
recording
Is it?
that.
It's going in public.
Sure, well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So-
somebody has to be really, really determined to listen to the recordings.
Well, and honestly, so while I say that it's not fully bulletproof, I mean, if you come in there with an AK, it's not gonna, but I mean, a shot, it's going to stop that and it's gonna shatter, but, so I mean, there is protection, nobody's gonna walk up and just kick
Now,
through
just so you're
it.
not gonna elbow it
But
and
it's,
blow it to
it's the
pieces.
when, if you go in there, if you get a chance to stop by the sheriff's office, that window that we've installed, and it's going to fit inside of that. It's going to be large. It's about 3.5 feet
Right.
by 5 feet.
Yeah. So it'll go up to that, it'll close that
Yes,
entire opening, I
absolutely.
guess. is my
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank
And
you.
there'll be a speak through with a speaker, so, and a pass through. It'll be very similar to how the courts have it here.
Okay. Very good.
Go back to work.
Okay, well, if nothing else, we'll conclude the staff meeting and finish up with our agenda and try to get a bite of lunch.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys, appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Everything 5 minutes.
We
Yeah,
drained
we
the
really.
sprinkler system, there's no way to do it. I had to, in fact, I was out there digging up
it.
and had to replace the line because it shut off last year until after the frozen crack.
This doesn't need for an executive.
So,
But your lawn always looks nice, so.
I think we've covered the staff meeting. I think we've dealt with personnel policy. It was your agenda item, sir, if you were comfortable with that.
We got it covered.
Okay. Here's what I'm thinking, that we will have our public comment session now, then we will adjourn. We have a budget workshop this afternoon, so at this time, if there's any comments from the public, more than happy to hear them. Thank you guys for being here.
Hey,
Gentlemen?
one quick thing,
Okay.
Tom, is when, we're not having an executive session, it's just on the agenda as a placeholder, right?
That's correct.
So any time that we do have an item, I want to make sure that we put a general notice out there of what we're going back to discuss, if it's a personnel issue or if it's a security issue.
By law, we have to
We need, I wanna make
articulate
sure
that, correct, if we're going into executive session.
At the time we go in, we
Right.
don't have to put it
Not
on.
on the
Unless we
agenda.
know.
If we know ahead of
Think we
time that
should.
we're gonna be talking about it, I'll try to, I mean, if
That'd
I'm
be good.
requesting it, if it's a legal issue I wanna discuss or something,
Sure.
just general terms.
General terms is all I'm looking for.
Okay. Anything else? If not, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move it. We adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Before we do that, when do you intend to start the budget?
That's a great
workshop?
point. Gentlemen, 1:30?
Where are you eating?
I have no idea. You want to go an hour recess? State your,
1:30.
1:30 is all right, Mr. Prince? You okay with that? or-
Yeah, sure.
1:30. We will reconvene as a workshop. It will not be a Board of Commissioner meeting. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.